I came back from a work trip, and when I walked into the house, my wife and her whole family were waiting for me. My daughter said, "Dad, your time is over. Mom is happier with her new boyfriend now." I walked away without saying a word. The next day, I had 118 misread calls. The key turned in the lock with that familiar metallic whisper I'd heard 1,000 times before. 3 weeks on the road, Singapore, Tokyo, then a brutal 2-day layover in Dubai due to visa complications. And all I wanted was to collapse into my own bed, kiss my daughter goodnight, even though she was probably already asleep. And maybe, if Claire was still awake, tell her about the contract we'd finally closed. The one that would change everything for us. The one I'd been breaking my back for. The house was too quiet. No, that's not right. The house was too full of quiet. The kind of silence that has weight, that presses against your eardrums like diving too deep too fast. Every light on the first floor was on. The chandelier in the foyer that Claire always said was too expensive to run. The recessed lighting in the hallway, even the decorative sconces we only use for dinner parties. The house was lit up like a stage, and I was walking into a performance I hadn't auditioned for. I set my carry-on down slowly, my hand still on the handle. Business instinct, the same instinct that had carried me through 15 years of negotiations, screamed that something was wrong. The air felt choreographed, arranged. "Claire?" My voice sounded strange in that manufactured silence. "Emma?" The living room was to my left, and that's when I heard it. The subtle shift of fabric, the barely there creak of our leather sofa, the kind of sounds you only notice when people are deliberately trying to be quiet. Multiple people. I stepped into the doorway, and the scene that greeted me will be burned into my memory until the day I die. Every detail sharp enough to draw blood. Claire sat in the center of the sofa, my wife of 16 years, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Deep emerald green, the kind of thing she wore when she wanted to feel powerful. Her mother, Patricia, was stationed on her right like a general, her spine rigid, her face set in that expression of righteous judgment she'd perfected over decades of looking down on everyone who didn't summer in Martha's Vineyard. Claire's father, Robert, stood behind them, arms crossed, playing the patriarch. Claire's younger sister, Amanda, perched on the arm of the sofa, and her brother, that useless trust fund philosopher David, leaned against the fireplace mantel like he was posing for a portrait titled "Man at Moral Crossroads." And there, standing slightly apart from her mother, was Emma, my daughter, my baby girl who I'd rocked to sleep every night until she was 4, who I'd taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose middle school bullies I'd confronted, whose high school graduation had made me cry in a way I'd never cried before. 14 years old now, and looking at me with eyes that weren't quite her own, eyes that had been coached. "Dad," her voice was steady, rehearsed. She'd practiced this. Someone had made her practice this. "Your time is over." The world tilted slightly, like the floor had become a ship's deck in a storm. What? It was all I could manage. My brain was still trying to process the staging of this intervention, this ambush, what was this? Emma's chin lifted slightly, and I recognized the gesture. It was her mother's gesture, the one Claire used when she was trying to convince herself she believed what she was saying. "Mom is happier with her new boyfriend now." 7 words. 7 words delivered in my daughter's voice but written by someone else. 7 words that detonated in my chest like a shaped charge, designed for maximum damage. I looked at Claire. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was staring at them like they held the secrets of the universe. Her mother's hand rested on her shoulder, protective, possessive. "Claire?" I said her name like a question, like a prayer, like an accusation. Patricia's voice cut through the room like a knife through silk. "Marcus, I think it's time we all acknowledged what's been obvious for quite some time. This marriage hasn't been working. You're never here. Claire has been essentially a single mother. I've been working." My voice was sharp, sharper than I intended, but the absurdity of this moment was starting to pierce through the initial shock. "I've been working to provide..." "Dan... Choi, money isn't everything," David interjected from the fireplace, and I wanted to laugh. David, who'd never held a job for more than 6 months, who lived off a trust fund established by the grandfather he'd never met, was going to lecture me about the value of money. Marcus, Robert's voice was gentler, but no less final. We're all here because we care about you, about Emma, about doing this the right way. Doing what the right way? The question came out too loud, and Emma flinched. That small movement, that tiny recoil from my voice hurt more than anything else. Claire finally looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry, like she'd cried all her tears days ago and was now running on something else. Resolve, maybe, or relief. I want a divorce, Marcus. Her voice was quiet but clear. I've wanted one for a long time. I've met someone who makes me feel alive again. Someone who's actually present. The words should have destroyed me. Maybe they did. But in that moment, standing in my own living room, surrounded by my wife's family like I was on trial, something else happened. Something cold and clear and absolutely silent settled into the space where my panic should have been. I'd spent 15 years reading rooms, reading people, reading the spaces between what they said and what they meant. I'd built a career on seeing patterns, on anticipating moves, on knowing when someone was bluffing and when they were playing their final hand. And this theatrical production, this carefully staged revelation with the entire family as witnesses, my daughter fed lines like she was in a school play. This was something else entirely. How long? I asked, my voice suddenly calm. Claire blinked. She'd expected shouting, maybe tears, perhaps pleading. She hadn't expected calm. What? How long have you been seeing him? That's not relevant. 6 months, Amanda supplied helpfully, and Patricia shot her a look that could have stripped paint. Claire's sister had never been good at keeping secrets. 6 months. I'd been traveling heavily for 6 months, ever since the Donovan account had exploded into a multi-regional project. Singapore, Shanghai, Dubai, London. Building something. Building us a future. And you all knew? I looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. This was a family decision? It's what's best for Emma, Patricia said firmly. She needs stability. She needs a father who's actually present in her life. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, saw the way she was standing, stiff, uncomfortable, like she was wearing someone else's skin, saw the way her eyes kept darting to her grandmother, seeking approval, or perhaps permission. Emma, I said her name softly. Is this what you want? For just a moment, one brief, shining moment, I saw my daughter's real face beneath the mask, saw confusion and fear, and something that might have been an apology. But then Patricia's hand tightened on Claire's shoulder, and Claire reached out to Emma, and the moment was gone. Yes, Emma whispered. I think it would be better. The silence that followed was different from the silence I'd walked into. This silence had teeth. I nodded slowly, once, twice. Then I reached down, picked up my carry-on, and turned toward the stairs. Marcus, we need to discuss the logistics, Robert started. No. The word was quiet but absolute. No, we don't. Not tonight. Not like this. I walked up the stairs, each step deliberate and measured, feeling all their eyes on my back. Behind me, I heard the murmur of voices, Patricia's sharp whisper, Claire's response, David saying something that was probably meant to be profound. My bedroom, our bedroom, felt like a museum of a life that had ended while I wasn't looking. Claire's things were still scattered across her dresser, her robe still hung on the bathroom door, but there was a subtle wrongness to it all, like a stage set dressed to look lived in, but fundamentally empty. I set my carry-on the bed and stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing in particular. My phone was in my pocket, vibrating with incoming messages. I pulled it out. The family group chat, the one that included Claire's parents and siblings, the one I'd been added to years ago and never removed from, was exploding with messages. He took it better than expected. Do you think he'll fight it? The lawyer said, if he contests, we might have to go a different route. Claire, you did the right thing. Stay strong. I read them all. My face expressionless, my heart rate steady. Then I opened my messages to Claire, our private conversation. Scrolled back through weeks of my messages, updates on travel, photos of skylines, thinking of you, miss you. Can't wait to be home. Her responses had grown shorter and shorter. Okay, safe travels. Emma says hi. I scrolled back further. 6 months. Found the place where her responses had changed, where the warmth had evaporated like water on hot pavement. Found the last time she'd said, I love you, unprompted. 7 months ago, 1 month before, according to Amanda's helpful timeline. I opened my laptop, logged into our shared cloud storage, the one we use for family photos and household documents. Claire had always been meticulous about documentation, about keeping records. It was one of the things I'd loved about her organized mind, her neat digital filing system. I created a new folder on my own private drive and I began downloading. Everything, every document, every photo, every file. While they copied, I opened our bank account statements. Our joint account showed normal activity, mortgage, utilities, Emma's school expenses, groceries. But Claire had her own account too, one from before we were married that she'd kept active. I'd never looked at it. Why would I? We'd built our life on trust. I looked at it now. The credit card bills were more interesting. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to. A hotel in the city, multiple charges over several months. Purchases at stores I didn't recognize. And then, 3 weeks ago, a large purchase at a jeweler downtown. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire. Are you okay? I stared at the message for a long moment, then locked my phone without responding. The house had gone quiet again. A real quiet this time. I heard car doors closing outside. Patricia and Robert leaving, probably taking Amanda and David with them. The intervention was over. The family had done their duty. I lay back on the bed, still fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The fan rotated slowly above me, the same fan that had been there when we'd moved into this house 8 years ago. Emma had been 6. She'd helped me paint her room purple, getting more paint on herself than the walls. Claire had laughed until she cried, and later, after Emma was asleep, we'd made love in this bed and talked about the future like it was a place we were both heading toward together. When had that future become the past? My phone buzzed again and again and again. I turned it face down on the nightstand and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I would start making calls. Tomorrow I would begin the work of understanding what had happened to my life while I was 30,000 feet in the air, negotiating contracts and believing I was building something worth coming home to. But tonight I would let them think they'd won. Tonight I would let them believe that I'd accepted this theatrical execution of our marriage without resistance. Tonight I would be silent, because I'd learned something in 15 years of business that Claire and her family had apparently never understood. The most dangerous person in any negotiation isn't the one who shouts. It's the one who walks away. I didn't sleep. How could I? I lay there in the darkness, listening to the house settle around me. Each creak and groan suddenly unfamiliar, like I was hearing the building's true voice for the first time. Around 2 in the morning, I heard Claire come upstairs. Her footsteps paused outside the bedroom door, our bedroom door, for what felt like an eternity. I could picture her standing there, hand hovering over the doorknob, working up the courage to come in or the resolve to stay out. She stayed out. The guest room door clicked shut down the hall, and I released a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Even now, even after the theater of cruelty I'd walked into, some part of me had been bracing for her to come in, to try to explain, to attempt some kind of conversation that would make this real in a way that the staged intervention hadn't. Her absence was somehow worse than her presence would have been. At 4:47 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely. I showered in the ensuite bathroom, the water scalding hot, trying to wash away the feeling of being ambushed in my own home. Steam filled the space, fogging the mirror, and I stood there afterward, one towel around my waist, wiping a clear spot to see my reflection. I looked the same. Same face I'd shaved for 42 years. Same scar above my left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. Same slightly crooked nose that Emma had inherited, much to Claire's mother's eternal disappointment. But my eyes looked different, older, clearer, like something had been burned away and what remained was more concentrated, more essential. I dressed carefully, charcoal suit, white shirt, burgundy tie. The same armor I wore into high-stakes meetings. If this was war, and the scene last night had certainly felt like a declaration of it, then I would dress for battle. My phone sat on the nightstand where I'd left it, face down, silent. I picked it up and checked the time. 5:23 a.m. In 2 hours, my office would start coming to life. My assistant, Jennifer, would arrive by 7:30, and my first meeting was at 9. A normal Monday, except nothing about this Monday was normal. I had 63 new messages and 12 missed calls, all from last night after I'd gone upstairs. I scrolled through them without opening any, just reading the preview text that appeared on the lock screen. Marcus, I know this is hard, but we need to talk about next steps. Claire, you can't just ignore this. Claire, we need to discuss Emma's schedule and how we're going to handle this transition. Claire, I think it would be better if you stayed somewhere else for a few days. Give everyone some space. Claire, please call me. Claire Patricia had sent several messages too, each one more imperious than the last, full of words like reasonable and mature and Emma's best interests. Robert had sent one message at 11:47 p.m. Marcus, I know I'm not your favorite person right now, but I hope you know this isn't personal. We're all trying to do what's right. I almost laughed at that one. What's right? As if there was some objective moral truth to ambushing someone in their own home, using their child as a weapon, staging a public execution of a marriage without warning. David, surprisingly, hadn't sent anything. Small mercies. I pocketed the phone without responding to any of them and went downstairs. The living room had been reset. All evidence of last night's intervention erased. The pillows were arranged just so, the throw blanket draped artfully over the sofa's arm, the coffee table books perfectly aligned. It looked like a showroom. It looked like no one lived here. Maybe no one did. Not anymore. I made coffee in the kitchen that was too large for 3 people, but that Claire had insisted we needed. For entertaining, she'd said, though we rarely entertained. The machine hissed and gurgled, and I stood there, watching the dark liquid drip into the carafe, hypnotized by the mundane normalcy of it. My laptop was still on the kitchen table where I'd left it last night after downloading files. I opened it now, sipping my coffee, and continued the work I'd started. Our shared photo albums told a story if you knew how to read it. I scrolled back through the years, watching our life play in reverse. Here was Emma's 13th birthday party, 6 months ago. I'd been in London, closing the Hendrix deal. Claire had sent me a video of Emma blowing out the candles. I'd watched it in my hotel room at midnight their time, dawn mine, my chest aching with missing them. Here was our 15th wedding anniversary, 10 months ago. We'd gone to that Italian restaurant downtown, the one where we'd had our first date. The photo showed us at the table, Claire smiling at the camera, me with my arm around her. We looked happy. We looked like people who belonged together. But I scrolled to the metadata. The photo had been taken at 7:47 p.m. We'd been home by 9:30. I remember because Claire had complained of a headache, and I'd been secretly relieved because I'd had an early morning call with the Singapore office. Here was Emma's middle school graduation, a year ago. I was in the photo, thank God. I'd moved mountains to be there, had cut a Tokyo trip short by 2 days, but I'd made it. Emma was beaming between us, her honors cord around her neck. We looked like a family, but then I looked closer, really looked. Claire's smile didn't reach her eyes. Her body was angled slightly away from me. Her hand was on Emma's shoulder, not touching me at all. How long had I been blind? I opened a new document and began to write. Not emotions, not feelings, just facts, dates, times, patterns. The business trips that had increased over the last 18 months, the Donovan account that had consumed my life, the promotions, the raises, the bonuses that I thought were building us security and Claire had apparently experienced as abandonment, but also the times I'd come home early to surprise them and found the house empty, the weekend I'd taken off in March to spend with Emma, and Claire had suddenly needed to visit her mother. The way our physical relationship had cooled, then chilled, then frozen solid, and I told myself it was stress, it was age, it was normal. The lies we tell ourselves are always the most convincing. My phone buzzed. 6:15 a.m., a text from Claire. Are you still here? I looked up at the ceiling, toward where the guest room was. So she was awake too. Probably had slept as poorly as I had, or if she'd slept at all. I didn't respond. Another buzz, almost immediate. Marcus, this silent treatment is childish. We're adults. We need to communicate. The irony of that statement, coming from the woman who'd gathered her entire family to ambush me rather than having a private conversation, was not lost on me. I set the phone face down on the table and returned to my laptop. The credit card statements were a novel written in purchases. I cross-referenced them with my calendar, with my travel schedule. Every time I'd been out of the country, there were charges. The same restaurant in the city, Bella Notte, an upscale Italian place. Hotel charges at the Meridian downtown, always on Friday nights. Purchases at men's clothing stores, high-end ones. My wife had been buying gifts for her boyfriend with our money. With money I'd earned on business trips, she'd resented me for taking. The symmetry of it was almost poetic. At 6:45 a.m., I heard the guest room door open, footsteps in the hallway, then on the stairs. Claire appeared in the kitchen doorway, wrapped in her robe, her hair disheveled, her face bare of makeup. She looked exhausted and young and like a stranger. "You're still here," she said, and I couldn't tell if it was a question or an accusation. "I live here." My voice was calm, neutral, the voice I used in negotiations when I wanted to give nothing away. "Marcus, we need to talk." "Do we?" I took a sip of my coffee, didn't look at her, kept my eyes on my laptop screen. "I thought last night was pretty clear." "That's not fair. You just walked away. You didn't fight, you didn't argue, you didn't—" "What did you expect me to do, Claire?" Now I did look at her, and she took a small step back from whatever she saw in my face. "Beg? Plead? Put on a show for your family? Tell me, what was the correct response to being ambushed in my own home and told my marriage is over by my 14-year-old daughter?" She flinched. I thought it would be easier with everyone there. Support for both of us. Support. I tasted the word like it was poison. You staged an intervention like I'm an addict, used our daughter as a messenger, and surrounded yourself with your family like I was dangerous. That's not support, Claire. That's a coup. That's not, you're twisting it. Her hands clutched at her robe. I needed them there. I needed the courage. You can be so what? Intimidating. The word came out small. When you're home, you're so confident, so in control, and I knew if I tried to do it alone, I'd lose my nerve. I stood up slowly, deliberately, and watched her eyes track the movement. "Where's Emma?" "Still asleep." Claire glanced at the clock on the microwave. "She doesn't have to be up for another hour." "Good. She doesn't need to see this conversation." I closed my laptop with a quiet click. "Tell me about him." "What?" "Your boyfriend, the one who makes you feel alive, the one you've been seeing for 6 months. The one you've been taking to Bella Notte every time I'm out of the country. Tell me about him." The color drained from Claire's face. "How did you—" "Credit card statements. They're very informative." I picked up my phone, finally, and scrolled through the messages I hadn't answered. "You've been calling, texting. Tell me, Claire, what exactly did you think would happen after last night? Did you think I'd just accept it? Sign whatever papers you put in front of me? Move out quietly so you could move him in? It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" My voice was still calm, still controlled, but I could feel something cold and hard building in my chest, something that felt like anger but was really just clarity. "Help me understand, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been planning this for months. The family gathering, Emma's little speech, all of it choreographed. So what's the next act? What happens now?" Claire's eyes filled with tears, and once upon a time, that sight would have undone me, would have had me crossing the room to hold her, to comfort her, or to fix whatever was wrong. But this morning in this kitchen that suddenly felt like enemy territory, I stayed where I was. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "Then you should have divorced me before you started fucking someone else." She gasped like I'd slapped her. Maybe I had with words. Good. Let her feel a fraction of what last night had felt like. His name is Derek, she said after a long moment, her voice defensive now, angry. He's kind. He's present. He asks about my day and actually listens to the answer. He doesn't disappear for weeks at a time, chasing deals on the other side of the world. He sees me, Marcus. He actually sees me. Where did you meet him? What does it matter? Humor me. At Emma's school, he's the vice principal. She said it like it was a challenge, like she was daring me to judge her. The vice principal, a man who saw my daughter every day, a man who'd been part of her life for 6 months without my knowledge. The violations were stacking up, each one a paper cut that would eventually bleed me dry. Does Emma like him? The question seemed to surprise her. Yes, she does. He's good with kids. It's his job. I'm sure it is. I picked up my laptop, tucked it under my arm. I'm going to the office. Marcus, we haven't finished. Yes, we have. I moved past her toward the stairs. You wanted this conversation to happen, Claire. It happened. You told me you were leaving me for the vice principal. Message received. Now I have work to do. You can't just... Can't what? Go to my job. The job you resent me for having. The job that paid for this house and Emma's private school, and your car, and apparently your dates at Bellinote. I stopped at the base of the stairs and looked back at her. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings. Until then, I suggest we keep our interactions minimal, for Emma's sake. I climbed the stairs, went to my bedroom, and packed a bag. Clothes for a week, toiletries, my important documents from the safe in the closet. Claire followed me, standing in the doorway watching. Where are you going? A hotel? Marcus, you don't have to leave. We can figure out a schedule, trade off nights. I'm not trading off nights in my own house. I zipped the bag closed. You want me gone? I'm gone. Consider it a gift. You and Derek can have all the alone time you want. Just keep him away from Emma until the divorce is final. You can't tell me who... Actually, Claire, I can. I turned to face her fully. I'm still her father. I still have rights. And I will exercise every single one of them. You ambushed me last night, used our daughter as a weapon, and thought I'd just roll over. But you miscalculated. Her face went pale. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you there's a difference. I picked up my bag and my laptop case. Oh, and Claire, last night was the last time you get to control the narrative. From now on, I'm writing my own story. I walked past her, down the stairs, and straight to my car in the garage. My phone started buzzing the moment I started the engine. Claire, then Patricia, then Claire again. I connected my phone to the car's Bluetooth and let them all go to voicemail as I backed out of the driveway. The sun was coming up, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was going to be a beautiful day, the kind of day that made you believe in new beginnings. I drove to the office, letting muscle memory guide me through familiar streets, and parked in my reserved spot. The building was mostly empty this early, just the ambitious associates and the cleaning crew finishing their rounds. I rode the elevator to the 14th floor, walked through the glass doors of Whitmore & Associates, and straight to my office. Jennifer wasn't in yet, but she'd left a folder on my desk, the briefing materials for this morning's meeting. I set it aside and opened my laptop instead. By the time Jennifer arrived at 7:35 a.m. with my usual morning coffee, I had 3 new documents created: a timeline of Claire's affair, a financial breakdown of our marital assets, and a list of every business associate I knew who specialized in family law. Morning, Marcus, Jennifer said brightly, setting the coffee on my desk. Then she saw my face and her smile faltered. Are you okay? I need you to clear my calendar for the rest of the week, I said. Reschedule everything that can be rescheduled, delegate everything that can't, and get me the name of the best divorce attorney in the state. Not the most expensive, the best, someone who wins. Jennifer's eyes widened, but she was too professional to ask questions. Right away. As she left, my phone buzzed again. Missed call number 47. It was barely 8 in the morning and they were already panicking. Good, let them panic. Let them call and text and wonder why I wasn't responding. Let them feel for just a moment what it was like when someone you thought you knew became unreachable. I opened my coffee, took a long sip, and got to work. By lunchtime, I had 73 missed calls. By the end of the day, when Jennifer left with a worried backward glance, I had 118. I didn't answer a single one. The Grandview Hotel wasn't the most expensive option in the city, but it was discreet, comfortable, and most importantly, it had a business center that stayed open 24 hours. I checked in at 9 p.m. on Monday night, carrying my single bag and laptop case. And the young woman at the front desk was kind enough not to comment on the fact that I looked like a man whose life had just imploded. "How long will you be staying with us, Mr. Chen?" she asked, her fingers flying across her keyboard. "I'm not sure yet. Let's start with a week." She nodded, handed me 2 key cards, and directed me to the 11th floor. The room was generic in that was all hotel rooms are generic. Beige walls, abstract art that meant nothing. A bed that was comfortable but would never be home. I set my bag on the luggage rack and stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. At all those other windows where other people were living their lives, blissfully unaware that mine had become unrecognizable. My phone sat on the nightstand, still buzzing periodically. I'd stopped checking the number of missed calls after 118. It seemed like an arbitrary number to stop at, but something about it felt right. 118 attempts to reach me. 118 times I'd chosen silence over engagement. I ordered room service, a burger I barely tasted and fries I didn't finish, and spent the rest of the evening on my laptop, building my case like I was preparing for the negotiation of my life. Because that's exactly what this was, wasn't it? The biggest negotiation I'd ever face. Only this time, the assets on the table were my daughter, my home, my entire future. Around midnight, I finally checked my messages. Not all of them, I wasn't a masochist, just enough to get a sense of the evolving narrative. Claire's text had progressed through several emotional stages. Confusion, "Why aren't you answering?" Frustration, "This is ridiculous, Marcus, we need to talk." Anger, "You can't just ignore this situation." And finally, worry, "Please just let me know you're okay. Emma is asking about you." That last one landed like a punch to the sternum. Emma, of course Emma was asking. Despite being used as a weapon last night, despite delivering that rehearsed line about my time being over, she was still my daughter. Still the little girl who used to wait by the door when I came home from trips, who'd made me Father's Day cards with increasingly sophisticated puns as she got older, who'd once told me I was her favorite person in the whole world. I typed out a response. "Tell Emma I'm fine. I'll call her tomorrow." 3 dots appeared immediately. Claire was still awake, phone in hand, waiting. "Where are you?" I stared at the question for a long moment, then deleted my message draft and locked my phone. She didn't get to know where I was. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The Grandview had blackout curtains, and I pulled them closed against the city lights, plunging the room into darkness so complete it felt like floating in space. I lay on top of the covers, still fully dressed, and closed my eyes. Sleep came eventually, thin and full of dreams I couldn't quite remember when I woke. Tuesday morning, I was at Jennifer's desk before she arrived. I'd stopped at a coffee shop down the street from the office, one of those local places that ground their beans fresh, and where the barista knew how to make a proper espresso. I got 2, one for me, one for her, and was scrolling through emails on my phone when she came through the glass doors at 7:42 a.m. "Jesus Christ," she jumped, hand flying to her chest. "Marcus, you scared the hell out of me." "Sorry," I handed her the coffee as a peace offering. "Did you get what I asked for?" Jennifer set down her bag, took a grateful sip of the espresso, and pulled out her phone. "I did. 3 names. The first is Catherine Valdez. She's with Caldwell and Pierce, been practicing family law for 22 years, has an 87% success rate in contested custody cases. The second is James Morrison at Silverman and Associates, 15 years experience, known for being aggressive but effective. The third is Rebecca Chen, no relation I assume. She's a solo practitioner, former prosecutor, reputation for being absolutely ruthless in protecting her clients' interests. Set up meetings with all 3 for today." Jennifer's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline. "Today? Marcus, your calendar. I told you to clear it." "I did, but these are high-profile attorneys. They don't usually. Tell them it's urgent. Tell them I'm willing to pay a premium for immediate consultation. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. I took a long drink of my coffee. I need to see all three today because I need to retain someone by end of business tomorrow. She studied my face for a moment, and I could see her doing the math, putting together the pieces, cleared calendar, divorce attorney, the fact that I'd arrived before dawn looking like I'd slept in my clothes, which I basically had. Okay, she said quietly, I'll make it happen. By 10 a.m., I had appointments scheduled with all three attorneys. Valdez could see me at 11, Morrison at 2, and Chen had agreed to meet me for a late dinner at 6. Jennifer had worked her usual magic. I spent the hour before the first meeting reviewing my documentation. Every business trip for the last 2 years, cross-referenced with credit card charges and cell phone records. Every major purchase, every communication between Claire and me. I'd even gone through our text messages from the last year and flagged the ones that seemed relevant. The growing distance, her increasingly short responses, the way she'd stopped saying I love you and started saying okay instead. Catherine Valdez's office was in one of the older buildings downtown, the kind with marble floors and ornate molding that reminded you that law was a dignified profession with centuries of tradition. Her receptionist, an older woman with kind eyes, offered me water, coffee, or tea, and I accepted the water more to have something to do with my hands than because I was thirsty. Valdez herself appeared after only a few minutes of waiting. She was shorter than I'd expected from her website photo, maybe 5'4" in heels, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp brown eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in the first 3 seconds. Mr. Chen, she extended her hand and her grip was firm. Please, come back to my office. Her office was lined with law books and framed degrees, but also with photos, children at various ages, graduations, weddings. She caught me looking and smiled slightly. 3 kids, 7 grandchildren. I tell you this because I want you to know that I understand what's at stake in family law cases. It's not just money or property. It's people's lives, their futures, their children's well-being. She gestured to a chair across from her desk, and I sat, setting my laptop case beside me. Tell me what's happening, she said simply. So I did. I told her about coming home from a business trip to find my wife's entire family gathered in an ambush, about Emma's rehearsed speech, about Claire's confession of a 6-month affair, about the credit card statements and the hotel charges and the gifts purchased for another man with marital funds. Valdez listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and regarded me with those sharp eyes. First question, she said, what do you want from this divorce? Custody of my daughter. Full custody? I hesitated. I want what's best for Emma, but I don't trust Claire's judgment of right now. She's been lying for 6 months. She used Emma as a weapon. She had her deliver a line like some kind of... I stopped, took a breath. I want primary custody. Significant custody. I want to be the stable parent. That's going to be challenging given your travel schedule. I'm prepared to make changes, cut back on travel, work remotely more, whatever it takes. She made another note. The affair will help, but it's not the silver bullet people think it is. Courts care about what's best for the child, not about punishing adultery. The fact that Emma has been living primarily with her mother while you've been traveling extensively, that's going to be a factor. Emma was manipulated into saying what she said. She's 14. She doesn't understand what's really happening here. Maybe. Valdez's voice was gentle but firm. Or maybe she's a 14-year-old who's been essentially raised by a single parent for the last few years while her father was building his career. I'm not saying that to hurt you, Mr. Chen. I'm saying it because that's what opposing counsel will argue, and we need to be prepared for it. The words stung because they carried a grain of truth. How many school plays had I missed? How many parent-teacher conferences had Claire attended alone? How many nights had I called to say goodnight to Emma from a hotel room in a different time zone? Second question, Valdez continued. Assets. What are we looking at? I opened my laptop and pulled up the financial spreadsheet I'd created. The house is worth approximately 1.2 million, with 400,000 still on the mortgage. Joint savings of 230,000. My 401k is at 800,000. Hers is at 90,000. Investment portfolio is about 500,000. I make approximately 350,000 a year. Claire doesn't work outside the home. Valdez whistled low. So we're looking at significant assets. That's going to make this more complicated. With that income disparity, you're likely looking at spousal support. She cheated on me. Doesn't matter in this state. Spousal support is about need and ability to pay, not about moral failing. She leaned forward. Let me be blunt, Mr. Chen. You're a high earner with a stay-at-home wife and a teenage daughter. The optics aren't great. You travel extensively for work, which means Claire has been the primary caregiver. The affair is unfortunate for hers, but unless we can prove it directly harmed Emma, it's not going to be the deciding factor in custody. What about the fact that she's involved with Emma's vice principal? That he's been around my daughter without my knowledge or consent? That's better. That's something we can work with. She made more notes. We'll want to investigate that relationship thoroughly. How long has it been going on? What's the school's policy on staff relationships with parents? Has his position given him inappropriate access to Emma? We talked for another 45 minutes, covering everything from timeline to strategy to costs. Valdez's retainer was 25,000, with an estimated total cost of 60 to 100,000, depending on how contested the divorce became. I'll be honest with you, she said as we stood to shake hands. This is going to be difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. You're going to need to be prepared for a fight, and you're going to need to make some significant changes to your lifestyle and work habits. Can you do that? For my daughter, yes. She nodded approvingly. Good. Think about whether you want to retain me and let me know by tomorrow. I've handled cases like this before, Mr. Chen. They're never easy, but they're winnable if you're willing to do the work. James Morrison's office was the opposite of Valdez's in every way. Modern glass and steel building, minimalist decor, everything sleek and expensive and designed to intimidate. Morrison himself was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 30s, with styled hair and a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Mr. Chen, his handshake was crushing, the kind meant to establish dominance. I've reviewed your initial inquiry. Sounds like your wife really screwed you over. I disliked him immediately, but I listened to his pitch anyway. Morrison was aggressive, combative, the kind of lawyer who saw every divorce as a war to be won at any cost. He talked about destroying Claire's credibility, about making her regret the affair, about taking her to the cleaners. We'll subpoena her phone records, her emails, everything. We'll depose her boyfriend, make him squirm. By the time we're done, she'll be begging to give you whatever you want just to make it stop. And Emma? I asked. My daughter, how does she factor into this scorched earth strategy? Morrison waved a hand dismissively. Kids are resilient. She'll be fine. The goal is to win, Mr. Chen. You want custody? We'll get you custody. You want to minimize spousal support? We'll make that happen. But you have to be willing to fight dirty. I left his office after 30 minutes, knowing I would never hire him. He saw this as a game to be won, not as a family to be navigated through crisis. He saw Emma as leverage, not as a person. Rebecca Chen's office was in a converted brownstone in the historic district, sandwiched between a coffee shop and a bookstore. There was no receptionist, just a small waiting area with comfortable chairs and a sign that said, "Please knock." I knocked. "Come in." The voice was warm, inviting. Rebecca Chen was not what I expected. She was in her mid-50s, wearing jeans and a blazer, with her dark hair in a practical bob and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her office was cluttered but organized, with case files stacked neatly on every surface and a wall covered in photos. Not of family this time, but of children. Lots of children. My clients, she explained, seeing me look. The kids, every case I take, I ask permission to photograph the children involved, not for publicity, just for me, to remind myself what I'm fighting for. She gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell me why you're here. For the third time that day, I told my story. But with Rebecca, it felt different. She didn't just take notes. She asked questions. Real questions. Probing questions. Uncomfortable questions. Why do you think your wife cheated? What? Does it matter? It matters if you want to understand what happened to your marriage. Because here's the thing, Mr. Chen, and I'm going to be blunt with you. People don't usually cheat because they're happy and satisfied. They cheat because something is missing. Now that doesn't excuse it, and it doesn't mean it's your fault. But if you want to convince a judge that you should be the primary parent, you need to understand what went wrong and how you're going to fix it. I traveled too much for work. Did you? That's what Claire said, that I was never there. Were you? Rebecca leaned back in her chair. I'm not being accusatory. I'm asking you to really think about it. When you were home, were you present? Were you engaged with Emma's life? Did you know the names of her friends, her teachers, what subjects she loved, and which ones she struggled with? I opened my mouth to say yes, of course, but then I actually thought about it. Emma's best friend was Madison, Mackenzie. She was in 9th grade now, so her teachers would be, I didn't know their names. And her favorite subject, she'd always loved art, I thought. But was that still true? Rebecca saw the realization cross my face and nodded gently. Physical presence isn't the same as emotional presence. I'm not saying you were a bad father. I'm saying you might have been an absent one, even when you were in the same room. And if that's true, we need to acknowledge it and show the court that you're going to change. We talked for 2 hours, not about strategy or costs or aggressive tactics, but about Emma, about what she needed, what she wanted, what would truly be best for her. Rebecca asked about Emma's relationship with her mother, with me, with this new boyfriend who'd entered her life. Here's what I believe, Rebecca said finally. Divorce is traumatic for children. Always, but it doesn't have to be devastating. The key is keeping the focus on the child's needs, not the parent's hurt feelings. You're angry at your wife. You have every right to be angry. She betrayed you. She ambushed you. She used your daughter against you. But if we go into this with the primary goal of punishing Claire, Emma will be the one who suffers. So what do you suggest? I suggest we aim for joint custody with you as primary residential parent. We use the affair and the inappropriate relationship with the vice principal as leverage to get Claire to agree to this without a protracted court battle. We set up a custody schedule that gives Emma stability and gives both parents meaningful time with her. We negotiate spousal support that's fair but not crippling. And most importantly, we do this in a way that doesn't turn Emma into a battlefield. What if Claire won't agree? Then we go to court and we fight. But we fight smart, not dirty. We present you as the stable parent, the one who's willing to make changes, the one who has Emma's best interests at heart. We don't attack Claire's character. We just point out facts, the affair, the deception, the poor judgment, and we let the judge draw their own conclusions. She quoted me a retainer of $15,000, significantly less than Valdez and less than half what Morrison wanted. I don't charge based on how rich you are, she explained. I charge based on how much work the case will take. This one will take a fair amount, but I don't believe in bleeding clients dry. My goal is to get you and Emma to a good place, not to buy myself a vacation home. I stood up, extended my hand. When can we start? Rebecca smiled. I'll send you the retainer agreement tonight. Sign it, wire the funds, and we'll begin first thing tomorrow morning. Her smile faded into something more serious. But Mr. Chen, Marcus, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll be honest with me, with yourself, with Emma when the time comes. This process only works if we're dealing with truth. Can you do that? Yes, and I meant it. As I left her office and walked back to my car in the early evening darkness, my phone buzzed. Another call from Claire. Number 134, if I'd been counting, which I wasn't anymore. I let it go to voicemail and drove back to the Grandview Hotel, where I ordered another room service meal I wouldn't finish, and spent the evening drafting an email to Rebecca Chen, accepting her representation. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tomorrow I would start fighting for my daughter. Tonight I would sleep in a hotel room that wasn't home and dream of a life I hadn't realized I was losing until it was already gone. Wednesday morning arrived with rain, the kind of steady downpour that turns a city gray and makes everything feel heavy. I stood at the hotel room window with my third cup of coffee, watching water stream down the glass, and thought about Emma. It was 6:47 a.m. She'd be getting up soon, getting ready for school. Claire would make her breakfast, probably those protein pancakes Emma pretended to like, but actually hated. They'd drive to school together, and at some point during that drive, Emma would probably ask about me again. What was Claire telling her? That I'd abandoned them? That I was sulking? That I was being unreasonable? Or maybe, and this thought was worse, maybe Emma wasn't asking at all. My phone sat on the desk, fully charged, notifications silenced. I'd sent the retainer agreement to Rebecca last night at 11:43 p.m., along with a wire transfer confirmation for $15,000. She'd responded at 6:15 this morning. Received. Let's talk at 9 a.m. Come to my office prepared to work. I dressed in my second best suit, the charcoal Armani I saved for crucial meetings, and left the hotel at 7:30. The office was only 20 minutes away, but I needed to make a stop first. Emma's school, Riverside Academy, sat on 12 acres of manicured grounds in the nicest part of town. I'd toured it with Claire when Emma was in 6th grade, had written the tuition checks every semester since then without complaint. $35,000 a year for the privilege of small class sizes in college prep, and apparently for my wife to meet her boyfriend. I parked across the street at 8:15 a.m. and watched the drop-off line. Mercedes, BMWs, the occasional Tesla. Riverside parents were wealthy, successful, the kind of people who viewed education as an investment with guaranteed returns. I'd been one of them once. 3 days ago, a lifetime ago. At 8:23, I spotted Claire's white Lexus. She pulled up to the curb, and Emma got out, backpack slung over one shoulder. Even from this distance, I could see she moved slowly, reluctantly. Claire said something through the passenger window. Emma nodded without turning around, and the Lexus pulled away. Emma stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, just stood there while other students flowed around her like water around a stone. Then she pulled out her phone, looked at it, and her shoulders slumped in a way that made my chest physically hurt. She was checking to see if I'd called, if I'd texted, and I hadn't. I reached for my phone, pulled up her number, my thumb hovering over the call button. What would I say? I'm sorry I haven't called, but your mother staged a coup and I'm trying to figure out how to save our relationship. I love you even though you told me my time was over. Before I could decide, a man appeared beside Emma. Tall, maybe 6'2", athletic build, wearing khakis and a Riverside Academy polo shirt. He said something and Emma looked up, managed a small smile. He touched her shoulder, brief, appropriate, but familiar, and gestured toward the building. Derek Mitchell. Had to be. Emma's vice principal. My wife's boyfriend. The man who was present while I was 30,000 feet in the air. I watched them walk into the building together, watched how Emma's posture changed slightly in his presence, straightening a little. Responding to whatever easy conversation he was making, he made her feel safe, comfortable. He was good at his job. I hated him anyway. Rebecca's office smelled like coffee and old books when I arrived at 8:55 a.m. She was already at her desk, reading glasses on, surrounded by open files and yellow legal pads covered in her neat handwriting. Marcus. She looked up, gestured to the coffee pot on the credenza. Help yourself. We're going to be here a while. I poured a cup, black, no sugar, and sat across from her. The wall of photographs watched us, dozens of children frozen in happy moments. I wondered which ones had been through custody battles, which ones had survived their parents' divorces intact. I spent last night and this morning reviewing everything you sent me, Rebecca began, tapping one of the legal pads. The credit card statements, the timeline, the communications. I also did some preliminary research on Derek Mitchell. My hand tightened around the coffee cup. And he's been vice principal at Riverside for 3 years, Before that, he was an English teacher at Westbrook High. Divorced 2 years ago, no children. Clean record, no complaints filed against him. Well-liked by students and parents. On paper, he's exactly what he appears to be. A competent educator who happens to be dating your wife. There has to be something. There probably isn't. Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. Sometimes people aren't villains, Marcus. Sometimes they're just people. People who made choices we don't like. He's been around my daughter without my knowledge or consent. In his professional capacity at her school, yes. But has he overstepped? Has he done anything inappropriate? Those are the questions we need to answer. She flipped to a new page on her legal pad. I've drafted a formal discovery request for Claire's attorney. Once she retains one, which she will, we'll subpoena her phone records, emails, financial statements. We'll depose Derek Mitchell about the nature and timeline of his relationship with Claire. We'll talk to Emma's teachers, her friends' parents, anyone who can speak to her well-being. When can we start? We already have. I filed your divorce petition this morning. The words hit like a physical blow. Filed. It was real now, official, a matter of public record. My marriage wasn't just over. It was legally over, or would be soon. That fast? You hired me to move quickly. Rebecca pulled out a thick document and slid it across the desk. This is your petition. Take your time, read through it, make sure everything is accurate. I picked it up, started reading. Legal language formal and cold, reducing 16 years of marriage to numbered paragraphs and whereas clauses. The marriage is irretrievably broken. The parties have one minor child. The petitioner seeks primary physical custody. You'll notice I'm not making any allegations about Claire's fitness as a parent, Rebecca said. That's strategic. We're not attacking her. We're simply stating facts. You want primary custody because you believe it's in Emma's best interest, and you're prepared to make whatever changes are necessary to provide her with a stable home environment. I kept reading. Proposed custody arrangement. Emma would reside primarily with me, with Claire having alternating weekends and one evening per week. Holidays would be split. Major decisions regarding education, healthcare, and religious upbringing would be made jointly. This seems reasonable. That's the point. We're being the reasonable ones. When Claire's attorney reviews this, they'll see that we're not trying to cut her out of Emma's life. We're trying to provide structure and stability. Rebecca leaned forward. But here's the thing. I don't expect Claire to accept this. She's going to fight. She's going to argue that she's been the primary caregiver, that Emma is settled and happy, that disrupting her life now would be harmful. So why propose it if we know she'll reject it? Because it establishes our position. It shows the court that we came to the table with a fair offer, and if Claire rejects it, the burden shifts to her to explain why. Also, Rebecca paused, choosing her words carefully. Also, it sends a message to Claire that you're serious, that you're not going to just disappear quietly like she apparently expected you to. How will she find out about the filing? She'll be served with papers later today. Process server will deliver them to your home address. I imagined it. Claire answering the door, accepting an envelope, opening it to find legal documents that made everything real and irrevocable. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt nothing at all. What happens after she's served? She has 30 days to respond. In that time, she'll retain an attorney, probably someone local, someone who knows the family court judges. We'll file for temporary orders regarding custody and support. There will be a hearing, probably in 3 to 4 weeks. Rebecca pulled out a calendar. Between now and then, your job is to document everything. Keep a journal. Write down every interaction with Claire, every attempt to contact Emma, every missed call, every text message. If Claire prevents you from seeing Emma, document it. If she speaks negatively about you to Emma, document it. If Derek Mitchell is around Emma during Claire's parenting time before custody is established, document it. I want to see Emma. I know you do, and you have every right to see her. You're still her father, and no custody order has been issued yet. But, Rebecca held up a hand as I started to speak. But you need to be smart about how you approach this. If you show up at the house unannounced, Claire could claim you're being aggressive or intimidating. If you try to pick Emma up from school without Claire's knowledge, that could be seen as parental interference. So what do? You communicate through text or email, something we can document, and you request specific times to see Emma. Be flexible, be reasonable, but be persistent. Make Claire be the one who says no if she's going to say no. And every time she refuses, every time she makes it difficult, we document it and add it to our case. I set down the petition, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. This is going to take months, isn't it? Probably 6 to 8 months until final orders, yes, longer if she really fights. But Marcus, Rebecca's voice softened, the goal isn't to drag this out. The goal is to get to a place where Emma has stability and where both her parents are part of her life in a healthy way. Sometimes that takes time. What if Emma doesn't want to see me? The question hung in the air between us. Rebecca removed her glasses, cleaned them with the hem of her blazer, and put them back on, buying time, choosing her words. Then we deal with that when it happens. But from what you've told me, Emma's message on Monday night was coached. She's 14, old enough to have her own feelings, but also young enough to be heavily influenced by the parents she spends the most time with. If Claire has been telling her that you prioritized work over family, that you were never there, that you don't care, I do care. My voice cracked slightly. I care more than anything. Then you're going to have to show her that, not with words, but with actions, with presence, with time. Rebecca opened another file. Which brings me to your work situation. You told me you were prepared to cut back on travel. I need specifics. What does that look like? For the next hour, we went through my job, my responsibilities, my travel schedule. I explained about the Donovan account, about the Singapore and Tokyo offices, about the delicate negotiations that required face-to-face meetings. Rebecca listened, took notes, asked pointed questions. Could you work remotely most of the time and only travel when absolutely necessary? Theoretically, yes. It would mean turning down some opportunities, delegating more to my team. I'd probably have to give up the senior vice president position I've been working toward. Would you be willing to do that? I thought about Emma standing outside her school, shoulders slumped, checking her phone for a message from me that hadn't come. Yes. Then we need to make that official. Talk to your boss, get it in writing, show the court that you're making concrete changes. Rebecca made another note. What about your living situation? A hotel isn't sustainable long term. I've been looking at apartments. There's a place about 10 minutes from the house, 2-bedroom, available immediately. Rent it. Get Emma's room set up. Make it clear that you're establishing a home for her, not just a temporary space for yourself. Rebecca checked her watch. One more thing before you go. I need you to write a letter to Emma. A letter? Not to send, not yet, but I want you to write down everything you want to say to her, everything you're feeling, everything you wish she understood. Don't censor yourself. Don't worry about sounding weak or angry or hurt. Just write it all down. Why? Because you're going to need to process these emotions somewhere, and it can't be with Emma. When you do see her, you need to be the parent, stable, reassuring, present. You can't dump your hurt and anger on her, or even though she was part of how it was delivered. Rebecca stood, signaling the meeting was over. Write the letter. Show me at our next meeting. We'll decide then if and when Emma should ever see it. I left her office at noon, drove through the rain to a nearby park, and sat in my car with my laptop open. The letter to Emma started as a trickle and became a flood. I wrote about Singapore and Tokyo and all those hotels that looked the same, about believing I was building something for us, about the moment I'd walked through the door and heard her say, "Your time is over," and felt my world tilt sideways. I wrote about teaching her to ride a bike and reading her bedtime stories and the way she used to hold my hand when we crossed the street, so trusting, so sure I would keep her safe. I wrote about how sorry I was for all the times I wasn't there, all the plays and games and ordinary moments I'd missed because I thought providing was the same as presence. I wrote about how much I loved her, how she would always be my daughter, How nothing, not divorce, not distance, not time would ever change that. By the time I finished, it was 2:47 p.m., and I'd written 4,000 words through tears I didn't bother to wipe away. I saved the document, titled it "To Emma," and closed my laptop. Then I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Claire. "I'd like to see Emma. Can I pick her up from school tomorrow and take her to dinner?" The response came within 30 seconds. "You can't just disappear for 3 days and then waltz back in whenever you feel like it. Emma is confused and hurt. You need to give her space." I stared at the message, at the audacity of it, at the way Claire had somehow positioned herself as Emma's protector from me, from the father who'd provided for her, loved her, broke himself working to give her everything. I took a screenshot of Claire's text, saved it to my documentation folder, and typed my response. "I'm her father. I have every right to see her. Name a time and place. I'll be there." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Finally, you were served with papers today. I think all communication should go through our lawyers now." So she'd retained someone already. Fast work. I forwarded the entire text exchange to Rebecca with a single line. "She's blocking access to Emma. What do we do now?" Rebecca's response came 10 minutes later. "We file an emergency motion for temporary custody. I'll have it ready by morning. Document everything." I sat in my car in the parking lot of a park I'd taken Emma to when she was 7, watching the rain fall, and felt the first real stirring of something that wasn't grief or shock or pain. It was determination. Claire thought she could use Emma as leverage, could keep my daughter from me as punishment for not reacting the way she'd wanted on Monday night. She was wrong. At 4:32 p.m., I drove to the apartment I'd found, a modern 2-bedroom in a quiet complex with good schools and a park nearby. I signed in the lease, paid first month's rent and security deposit, and got the keys. The place was empty, waiting to be filled, waiting to become home. Emma's room would face east toward the sunrise. I'd paint it whatever color she wanted. I'd let her decorate it herself. I'd make sure she knew this wasn't just my apartment. It was our space, a place where she would always belong. At 6:03 p.m., my phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call. I checked the caller ID, Emma. My hand trembled as I answered. "Hey, sweetheart." "Dad?" Her voice was small, uncertain, so different from the rehearsed confidence of Monday night. "Where are you?" I looked around the empty apartment, at the blank walls and bare floors. "I'm at my new place. I got an apartment." "You left us?" "No," the word came out fierce, certain. "No, Emma, I didn't leave you. I left an impossible situation. But I would never, ever leave you. Mom said you're trying to take me away from her, that you filed papers saying she's a bad mom." Rage, white-hot and blinding, surged through me. Claire was already poisoning Emma against me, already shaping the narrative. I forced it down, forced my voice to stay calm and steady. "That's not true. I filed papers asking for shared custody so that you can spend time with both of us. Your mom and I are getting divorced, and I know that's scary and confusing, but we both love you very much. That will never change. Why did you leave Monday night? Why didn't you fight for us? Would you have wanted me to? With your grandmother there, and your aunt and uncle, and all of them lined up like I was the enemy." I took a breath. "Emma, what happened Monday night wasn't fair to you or to me. You shouldn't have been put in the middle like that. And I'm sorry I walked away without talking to you, but I needed time to process what had happened. Are you mad at me?" She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. "For what I said?" "No." I was crying too, standing in an empty apartment that felt like both an ending and a beginning. "No, baby, I'm not mad at you. I could never be mad at you. I miss you so much. Can I see you? Can we have dinner tomorrow? Just you and me?" "Mom said I should wait, that you need space." "I don't need space from you. I need to see you, please, Emma." A long pause. I heard muffled voices in the background. Claire probably, listening to the conversation, feeding Emma lines again. "I have to go," Emma whispered. "But Dad, I miss you too." The line went dead. I stood there in the empty apartment with tears streaming down my face and my phone clutched in my hand and made a promise to myself and to my daughter. I would fight for her. No matter how long it took, no matter what it cost, no matter how hard Claire tried to turn her against me. I would fight and I would win her back. Not through lawyers and court orders and legal strategies, though those would play their part, but through presence, through time, through showing her day after day that I was the father she deserved. Starting tomorrow. Thursday morning, I woke at 5:17 a.m. in my new apartment on a mattress I'd ordered for same-day delivery from a furniture store that charged me double for the privilege. The place still smelled like fresh paint and cleaning products, still echoed with emptiness, but it had a roof and walls and a second bedroom that would become Emma's sanctuary if I had anything to say about it. Rebecca's text had come through at 11:43 p.m. the night before, after I'd sent her the recording of my conversation with Emma. Emergency motion filed, hearing scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. Judge Patricia Brennan presiding. She's fair but tough. Bring documentation of everything, every text, every call log, every attempt to see Emma that Claire has blocked. Dress sharp, no emotions. No emotions. Right. Just walk into a courtroom 24 hours from now and calmly explain why my wife of 16 years had ambushed me, used our daughter as a weapon, and was now preventing me from seeing her. All while keeping my face neutral and my voice steady. I could do that. I'd negotiated million-dollar deals in rooms full of hostile executives. I'd kept my composure through merger discussions that got heated enough that security was called. I could handle one family court hearing, except those negotiations had never been about Emma. I made coffee in the kitchen that came equipped with appliances I didn't know how to use yet, and opened my laptop at the bare counter that would eventually hold bar stools and breakfast conversations and all the ordinary moments of a life I was trying to rebuild from rubble. The documentation folder I'd created had grown substantially. Every text exchange with Claire, time-stamped and screenshot. The credit card statements showing her affair. The timeline of my travel schedule versus her hotel visits with Derek Mitchell. Call logs showing my 17 attempts to reach Emma since Monday night, and Emma's one call to me last night, a call that had lasted 6 minutes and 43 seconds and had ended with my daughter whispering that she missed me before her mother presumably ended the conversation. I opened a new document and began drafting my statement for the hearing. Rebecca had said to stick to facts, so I did. Dates and times and specific incidents, stripped of emotion and presented like a brief to a corporate board. On Monday, November 23rd, at approximately 6:15 p.m., I returned home from a business trip to find my wife, Claire Chen, and her entire family gathered in our living room. My daughter, Emma Chen, age 14, delivered what appeared to be a rehearsed statement indicating that my time was over and that her mother was happier with her new boyfriend now. This was the first I learned of my wife's extramarital affair. I left the residence that evening and have since secured alternative housing. I have made multiple attempts to contact my daughter and arrange time with her. These attempts have been blocked or discouraged by Mrs. Chen, who has stated that I need to give Emma space and that all communication should go through lawyers. On Wednesday, November 25th, Emma called me. During this conversation, she stated that her mother told her I was trying to take her away and that I had filed papers saying Mrs. Chen was a bad mom. Neither of these statements is accurate. Emma also expressed confusion about why I left on Monday and asked if I was angry with her. I am seeking temporary custody orders to ensure consistent access to my daughter while we work through this divorce. I am not seeking to remove Emma from her mother's life, but to maintain my relationship with my daughter during this difficult transition. Clinical, professional, completely inadequate to capture what it felt like to have your 14-year-old daughter as if you were mad at her for being used as a weapon in her parents' war. But it would have to do. At 7:30 a.m., I drove to a storage facility and rented a unit. Then I drove to the house, my house. Legally still my house, even though it felt like enemy territory now, and used my key to enter through the front door. The place was silent. Claire's Lexus was gone from the garage. She'd already taken Emma to school. Good. I wasn't here to confront her. I was here to collect what was mine. I moved through the rooms methodically, professionally, like I was executing a business plan. From my home office, my files, my diplomas, my personal books. From the bedroom, my clothes, my toiletries, my father's watch that he'd given me on my wedding day. From the living room, the photos of Emma at various ages, the ones that were mine as much as they were Claire's. The visual history of my daughter's life. I didn't take anything that was Claire's. Didn't touch her belongings. Didn't even go into her closet. I just collected what had always been mine and loaded it into my car, making 3 trips between the house and the storage unit. On my final trip through, I stopped in Emma's room. It looked the same as always. Purple walls she'd chosen when she was 6 and had never wanted to change. Posters of bands I didn't recognize. A desk covered in schoolwork and art supplies. Her bed was unmade, which made me smile despite everything. Some things never changed. I took one thing from her room. A photo from her nightstand, Emma at age 8, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a fish she'd caught on our last real family vacation. We'd gone to a lake in Minnesota, rented a cabin, spent a week doing nothing but being together. It had been 4 years ago. 4 years since we'd all been that happy, that uncomplicated. I tucked the photo into my jacket pocket and left, locking the door behind me. At 9:47 a.m., I was back at my apartment when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Mr. Chen, this is Patricia Brennan's clerk calling from family court. I'm calling to confirm your appearance at tomorrow's emergency hearing at 10 a.m. Confirmed, I'll be there. Will you be represented by counsel? Yes, Rebecca Chen from Chen Family Law. A pause. No relation? No relation. Understood. Please arrive 15 minutes early for check-in. Have a good day, Mr. Chen. The call ended and I stood there in my empty apartment, feeling the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow, a judge would decide whether I had the right to see my own daughter. Tomorrow, my private family catastrophe would become public record. Tomorrow, I would have to sit across from Claire and listen to her paint me as the villain in the story of our marriage. My phone buzzed and Jennifer from the office. Checking in. How are you holding it up? Everyone here is worried about you. I typed back, I'm okay. Thank you for asking. I'll be back in the office early next week. Her response came immediately. Take whatever time you need. We've got everything covered. Focus on your family, my family. The word felt strange now, like trying on clothes that used to fit but had somehow changed shape. What was my family now? Was it Emma and me? Was it still the 3 of us, just reconfigured? Or had my family ended on Monday night when I walked through that door to find them all waiting? I spent the rest of the day preparing for the hearing. I printed every document Rebecca might need. I organized them into folders with tabs and labels, applying the same obsessive attention to detail I used in business presentations, financial records, communication logs, the credit card statements showing Claire's affair expenses, the timeline showing how she'd used marital funds to wine and dine Derek Mitchell while I was overseas working to support us. At 3:15 p.m., my phone rang. Emma's school. My heart jumped into my throat. Mr. Chen, this is Riverside Academy calling. Emma has asked to speak with you. Can you hold for a moment? Yes, of course. Rustling sounds, muffled voices, and then, Dad? Emma, hi, sweetheart, are you okay? I'm fine, I wanted to hear your voice. She sounded tired, strained, like she'd been crying. Can you still pick me up, like you used to? I don't know, honey. Your mom said, I know what Mom said, but you're still my dad, right? You still want to see me? More than anything in the world. Then come get me, please. I'll tell Mom I'm staying after for a club or something. We can have dinner, just us, please, Dad. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that Claire would use this against me, that taking Emma without Claire's explicit permission would be seen as parental interference. But it was Emma asking, Emma reaching out, Emma wanting to see me. What time does school end? 3:30, but I can meet you at the side entrance by the gym at 4. There's never anyone there. Emma, I don't want you to lie to your mother. I'm not lying, I am staying after for a club. It's called the Having Dinner with My Dad Club. Population 2. There was a hint of her old humor in that. The spark I'd been afraid was gone forever. Please? Okay, 4 o'clock. Side entrance by the gym. I'll be there. Thank you. Her voice broke slightly. I love you, Dad. Hey, Quam, you too, baby, so much. The line went dead and I immediately called Rebecca. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you're not doing what I think you're about to do. Emma asked me to pick her up. She wants to have dinner. Did Claire approve this? No, but Emma said, Marcus, listen to me very carefully. If you pick up Emma without Claire's knowledge or permission, she can call the police. She can claim you're violating her custody rights. She can use this against you in court tomorrow. Emma is 14 years old and she's asking to see her father. What am I supposed to do, say no? A long sigh. No, you're not supposed to say no. But you are supposed to protect yourself. Here's what you do. Text Claire right now. Tell her Emma called and asked to have dinner with you, and you're picking her up at 4. Don't ask permission. Inform her. Then screenshot her response and forward it to me. And if she says no, then you tell Emma you can't do it today, but you're working on it. Marcus, I know this is hard, but you have to think long term. One dinner versus losing credibility in court tomorrow? Which matters more? She was right. I knew she was right. But the memory of Emma's voice, the way she'd said, please, like she was afraid I'd abandon her, made it hard to think strategically. I'll text Claire now. Good. And Marcus? Assume everything you do between now and the hearing will be scrutinized. Everything. I hung up and drafted the text to Claire. Emma called and asked me to pick her up at 4 p.m. for dinner. I'll have her home by 8 p.m. This is not a request for permission. I'm informing you as a courtesy. She's my daughter too. I sent it at 3:23 p.m. The response came at 3:24 p.m. Absolutely not. You are not picking up Emma without my consent. If you try to pick up there, I will call the police. I stared at the message, feeling rage build like pressure in a sealed container. She was going to use the police, the actual police, to prevent me from seeing my daughter. I forwarded it to Rebecca, then texted Emma. Sweetheart, I can't pick you up today. Your mom said no, and I don't want to make things harder for you. But I promise we'll have dinner soon. I promise I'm fighting for us. I love you. The dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Then nothing. At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang. Emma's school again. Mr. Chen, this is Vice Principal Mitchell. The voice was warm, friendly, completely professional, and I wanted to reach through the phone and strangle him. Emma is quite upset. She's in my office right now. I understand there's some family difficulty at the moment. Is there anything I can do to help facilitate a conversation between you and your wife? You can stay out of my family's business, I said, my voice ice cold. You can stop positioning yourself as some kind of mediator when you're actually my wife's boyfriend. And you can tell Emma I'll see her soon. A pause. Mr. Chen, I'm calling in my professional capacity as Emma's vice principal, not in any personal capacity. She's distressed, and my job is to ensure student well-being. Your job is to educate students, not to sleep with their mothers. I hung up before he could respond. 30 seconds later, Rebecca called. Please tell me you did not just say what I think you said to Derek Mitchell. How did you? He called me. He's considering whether to file a harassment complaint. Marcus, what were you thinking? I was thinking that he's my wife's boyfriend and he has no right to involve himself in my relationship with my daughter. He's also Emma's vice principal, which means he has every right to call a parent when a student is upset on school grounds. You just gave them ammunition. Rebecca's voice was sharp, frustrated. We have a hearing in less than 24 hours. We're supposed to be showing that you're the stable, reasonable parent. How does attacking the vice principal support that narrative? She was right, again. I was letting my emotions drive my decisions, exactly what I'd been trained not to do in every other aspect of my life. What do? Nothing. You do nothing. You don't call Mitchell back. You don't go to the school. You don't contact Emma again today. You go home, you review your documents for tomorrow, and you keep your head down. Can you do that? Yes. Good. I'll see you tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. outside Judge Brennan's courtroom. Wear your best suit and bring everything we discussed. And Marcus, get some sleep. You need to be sharp tomorrow. Sleep, right? As if sleep was possible when my daughter was upset at school and my wife was threatening police intervention, and I just torpedoed my own case by losing my temper with the man who was sleeping with my wife. I ordered dinner from a Thai place that delivered, ate half of it without tasting it, and spent the evening organizing and reorganizing my documents until they were perfect. Financial records in chronological order, communication logs color-coded by type, character references from colleagues and friends, all attesting to my fitness as a father and my commitment to Emma's well-being. At 10:37 p.m., I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Mitchell.derek@riversideacademy.edu. The subject line read, "Regarding Emma." I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. "Mr. Chen, I want to apologize for the phone call earlier today. You're right that I overstepped by calling in my personal capacity when I should have maintained professional boundaries. I'm writing now to assure you that my only concern is Emma's well-being. She's a bright, sensitive young woman who is clearly struggling with her parents' separation. I know you have no reason to trust me or to believe that my intentions are good, but I want you to know that I care about Claire, and I care about Emma, and I would never intentionally harm either of them, or you, for that matter. I'm not trying to replace you in Emma's life. I'm simply trying to support the woman I love during a difficult time. For what it's worth, Emma talks about you often. She's proud of you and loves you very much. Whatever happens between you and Claire, please don't let her become collateral damage. Respectfully, Derek Mitchell." I read the email 3 times, analyzing every word, every phrase, looking for manipulation or hidden agenda or anything that would justify the rage I felt toward this man. But it seemed genuine, sincere even, which somehow made it worse. I closed my laptop without responding and lay down on my mattress in my empty apartment, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. Tomorrow, I would walk into a courtroom and fight for the right to be a father to my daughter. Tomorrow, a judge would decide if my marriage had failed because I'd been absent or because Claire had been unfaithful, as if those two things could be weighed against each other like items on a balance scale. Tomorrow, I would have to look at Claire across a courtroom and remember that once upon a time, I'd loved her enough to promise forever. Tomorrow, I would begin the process of turning forever into over. But tonight, I let myself feel everything I'd been holding back since Monday. The grief and rage and confusion and heartbreak and fear. I felt it all. Let it wash over me in waves, and when I finally fell asleep sometime after 2 in the morning, I dreamed of Emma at age 8, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up that fish like it was the greatest treasure in the world. In the dream, we were still a family. In the dream, I was still home. Friday morning arrived with cruel sunshine, the kind of bright November day that felt like mockery. I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment bathroom at 7:15 a.m., adjusting my tie for the 3rd time, navy with subtle gray pinstripes, paired with my best charcoal suit and a crisp white shirt, the uniform of success, of competence, of a man who had his life together. I looked like a fraud. The bags under my eyes told the real story. 3 hours of fitful sleep interrupted by dreams where Emma kept walking away from me, getting smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. I'd given up on sleep at 5:30 and spent 2 hours reviewing my documentation again, memorizing dates and details until they were carved into my brain. Coffee helped, though my hands shook slightly as I poured it. Nerves or exhaustion, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. At 8:45 a.m., I pulled into the parking lot of the county courthouse, an imposing limestone building that had probably been designed to intimidate people exactly like me. Ordinary citizens whose lives had gone sideways and who now needed the legal system to make sense of chaos. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, breathing slowly, deliberately, trying to channel the calm I'd used in boardrooms and negotiations. This was just another meeting, just another presentation, just another room full of people I needed to convince. Except it wasn't. It was my daughter's future, and the stakes had never been higher. Rebecca was waiting on the courthouse steps at 9:25 a.m., looking sharp in a black suit and carrying a leather briefcase that was probably older than I was. She spotted me and nodded approvingly at my appearance. "You clean up nice," she said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "That's a lie, but I'll accept it." She gestured toward the entrance. "Let's go over the game plan one more time before we go in." We found a quiet corner in the lobby, away from the other people waiting for their own legal dramas to unfold. A young couple arguing in tense whispers, an older man studying papers with a defeated expression, a woman crying quietly on a bench while her lawyer patted her shoulder awkwardly. "Judge Brennan is fair but no nonsense," Rebecca said, keeping her voice low. "She doesn't like theatrics, doesn't like people wasting her time, and absolutely despises parents who use children as weapons. Everything we present needs to be factual, documented, and focused on Emma's well-being, not on punishing Claire." "I understand." "Do you? Because yesterday you told Derek Mitchell to stay out of your family business and called him out for sleeping with your wife. That's emotion, Marcus. That's exactly what we can't have in there." She pointed toward the courtroom doors. "Today you're not a hurt husband. You're a concerned father who wants consistent access to his daughter during a difficult transition. Can you be that person?" I took a breath, squared my shoulders. "Yes." "Good. Claire will probably have her attorney paint you as an absent workaholic who's suddenly interested in custody because your ego is bruised. Let them make those arguments. We'll counter with facts, your attempts to see Emma, Claire's blocking behavior, the fact that you have already secured housing and are prepared to make work accommodations. We're not attacking Claire. We're showing that you're a fit parent who deserves regular time with his daughter. What if they bring up the Derek Mitchell phone call? Then we acknowledge it was a mistake made in the heat of the moment, apologize if necessary, and move on. Don't dwell on it. Don't justify it. Don't let it become the story." Rebecca checked her watch. "It's 9:48. We should head to the courtroom." The family court waiting area on the third floor was smaller than I had expected, with worn linoleum floors and plastic chairs that had seen better decades. A bailiff stood by the door to courtroom 3B, checking a clipboard and calling names. Claire wasn't there yet. We sat in the hard plastic chairs, Rebecca reviewing her notes while I tried not to watch the door. But I couldn't help it. Every time it opened, my eyes snapped up, my body tensing. At 9:54 a.m., Claire walked in. She wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit walked beside her, mid-50s, gray at the temples, carrying himself with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Her attorney. Behind them, looking deeply uncomfortable, was Derek Mitchell. Our eyes met across the waiting room, and for a moment, I saw my wife, my actual wife, the woman I'd married 16 years ago. The woman who'd cried happy tears when Emma was born. The woman who used to laugh at my jokes and fall asleep on my shoulder during movies. She looked exhausted, makeup doing its best to hide the same sleepless nights I'd experienced. Her hair was pulled back severely, and she wore a conservative navy dress that I'd never seen before. She looked away first. "That's Richard Halloway," Rebecca murmured, "top-tier family attorney. This is going to be harder than I thought." Before I could respond, the bailiff called out, "Chen versus Chen, emergency custody hearing. All parties please enter the courtroom." The courtroom was smaller and less dramatic than what I'd seen on TV. No jury box, no dramatic lighting, just a practical space with the judge's bench at the front, tables for each party, and a handful of seats for observers. Everything was done in muted browns and grays, businesslike and efficient. Judge Patricia Brennan was already seated when we entered, a woman in her early 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. She looked up from the documents she was reviewing as we filed in. "Counsel, please approach and state your appearances for the record." Rebecca and Halloway moved forward. I stayed at our table, acutely aware that Claire was sitting 20 feet away at the opposite table, Derek Mitchell in the row behind her like a silent sentinel. Rebecca Chen, appearing on behalf of the petitioner, Marcus Chen, Your Honor. Richard Halloway appearing on behalf of the respondent, Claire Chen, Your Honor. Judge Brennan made notes on her pad. "I've reviewed the emergency motion for temporary custody and Mr. Halloway's response filed late yesterday. This hearing is to determine temporary custody arrangements pending final divorce proceedings. I'll hear from petitioner's counsel first. Ms. Chen, you have 15 minutes. Rebecca returned to our table, gave me a small nod of reassurance, and stood. Your Honor, my client is seeking temporary joint custody with primary physical custody of the party's minor child, Emma Chen, age 14. This is not an attempt to remove Emma from her mother's life, but rather to ensure that Mr. Chen maintains a meaningful relationship with his daughter during what is admittedly a difficult time for the entire family. She laid out our case methodically, clinically. The ambush on Monday night, my repeated attempts to see Emma, Claire's text messages blocking access, the phone call from Emma herself asking to see me, followed by Claire's threat to call the police if I picked up our daughter from school. Mr. Chen has secured appropriate housing, a 2-bedroom apartment specifically chosen for its proximity to Emma's school. He has made his employer aware of his situation and is prepared to significantly reduce travel to ensure consistent availability for Emma. He is not seeking to punish Ms. Chen for her infidelity, though we note that the affair and the manner in which it was revealed to Mr. Chen have created additional stress for Emma. Holloway stood. Objection, Your Honor. The alleged affair is not relevant to custody matters. Ms. Chen? Judge Brennan looked at Rebecca. It's relevant insofar as it speaks to Ms. Chen's judgment, Your Honor, particularly regarding the involvement of her romantic partner, Emma's vice principal, in family matters without Mr. Chen's knowledge. Judge Brennan made another note. I'll allow it for now, but keep it focused on the child's well-being, not marital fault. Continue. Rebecca presented the documentation, printed copies of text messages, call logs, the email from Derek Mitchell that I'd received last night. She characterized my response to Mitchell as regrettable but understandable given the circumstances, and moved on quickly. The core issue here, Your Honor, is that Ms. Chen has positioned herself as the gatekeeper to Emma's relationship with her father. She has blocked access, made threats involving law enforcement, and according to Emma's own statements, has told the child that her father is trying to take her away. This is parental alienation, and it's harmful to Emma. Your Honor, Holloway started to rise. You'll have your turn, Mr. Holloway. Judge Brennan gestured for him to sit. Ms. Chen, what specifically is your client asking for? Temporary orders establishing a custody schedule, alternating weeks with each parent with flexibility for Emma's school and social activities, joint decision-making on major issues, and a provision that neither parent will make disparaging remarks about the other to Emma or in her presence. Judge Brennan looked at me directly for the first time. Mr. Chen, stand please. I stood, my heart hammering. You've been married for 16 years, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you work in corporate consulting, which requires significant travel. Yes, Your Honor, though I'm prepared to reduce that travel substantially. What does substantially mean? Give me specifics. I'd prepared for this. Currently, I travel approximately 20 days per month, sometimes more. I've spoken with my supervisor about transitioning to a primarily remote role with only essential travel, no more than 5 days per month, and only domestic. That's quite a change. Will your employer support that? Yes, Your Honor, I received written confirmation yesterday. I'd actually received it at 11:47 p.m., Jennifer working late to get our VP to sign off on the accommodation, but the judge didn't need to know that. In your new apartment, you said it's 2 bedrooms? Yes, Your Honor. Emma would have her own room, decorated however she wants. I've also researched after-school programs in the area and identified a therapist who specializes in adolescents dealing with family transitions. Judge Brennan's expression didn't change, but she made several notes. Sit down, Mr. Chen. She looked at Holloway. Mr. Holloway, your response? Richard Holloway stood with the easy confidence of a man who'd won more cases than he'd lost. He was good. I could tell immediately from the way he commanded the space, his voice reasonable but firm. Your Honor, what we have here is a situation that, while undoubtedly difficult for everyone involved, does not constitute an emergency requiring immediate disruption of Emma's stable living arrangement. Ms. Chen has been Emma's primary caregiver throughout the child's life. She has maintained the household, supervised homework, attended every school event, every doctor's appointment, every parent-teacher conference. She has been present, Your Honor, while Mr. Chen has been building his career. The words landed like punches, each one true enough to hurt. Ms. Chen is not blocking access to Emma out of spite or malice. She is trying to protect a 14-year-old girl who is already confused and distressed by her parents' separation. On Monday evening, Mr. Chen walked out of the family home without explanation, without talking to his daughter, and then didn't contact her for 3 days. 3 days, Your Honor, during which Emma was frightened, confused, and questioning whether her father still loved her. That's not... I started to stand, but Rebecca's hand on my arm stopped me. When Mr. Chen finally did attempt contact, Holloway continued, it was to demand access on his terms, without consideration for Emma's emotional state or schedule. Ms. Chen requested that they give Emma some space to process the separation, and Mr. Chen responded by texting that he would pick Emma up whether Ms. Chen approved or not. When the school vice principal called to express concern about Emma's distress, Mr. Chen verbally attacked him. Judge Brennan looked at me. Is that accurate, Mr. Chen? I stood again. I didn't walk out without explanation, Your Honor. I walked out of an ambush where my wife and her entire family had staged an intervention using my daughter as the spokesperson. And I did contact Emma. I sent her a text the next day letting her know I was okay and that I loved her. But you didn't call her? I was processing what had happened. I needed time to understand the situation before I... So you left your 14-year-old daughter hanging for 3 days while you processed. Judge Brennan's tone was sharp. Mr. Chen, I understand this was a shock. I understand you felt ambushed. But from Emma's perspective, her father disappeared. The words hit harder than anything Holloway had said because they were true. I had disappeared. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but I had. Your Honor, Rebecca stood quickly. Mr. Chen acknowledges that his initial response wasn't perfect. He's human, and he was dealing with the sudden implosion of his marriage. But in the days since, he has made every effort to see Emma, and Miss Chen has blocked those efforts. Miss Chen, please stand, Judge Brennan said. Claire stood, her hands clasped in front of her, looking small and fragile in a way I'd never seen her look before. Or maybe I just never noticed. Did you tell your daughter that her father was trying to take her away from you? I may have said something like that, Your Honor. I was upset. The divorce papers said he wanted primary custody, and I thought, what you thought doesn't matter, Ms. Chen. What you said to your daughter does. Did you threaten to call the police if Mr. Chen picked Emma up from school? Yes, but only because I was worried he would just take her without telling me where they were going or when. Mr. Chen informed you of his intentions via text message, correct? He told you he would pick Emma up at 4 and have her home by 8? Yes, but nothing. You used the threat of law enforcement to prevent a father from seeing his daughter, not because there was any danger, but because you wanted control. Judge Brennan's voice was cold. That's exactly the kind of behavior that causes me to question your judgment, Miss Chen. Claire's face crumpled, and she sat down heavily. Derek Mitchell leaned forward, whispered something to her. Holloway looked less confident than he had 5 minutes ago. Judge Brennan reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of her pen scratching across paper. Finally, she looked up. Here's what I'm ordering on a temporary basis, subject to modification pending final hearing. Joint legal custody. Both parents will make major decisions together regarding Emma's education, healthcare, and welfare. Physical custody will be shared on a week-to-week basis, alternating Sundays at 6 p.m. Each parent will be responsible for transportation to and from school during their custodial week. My heart started to beat faster. Week to week, that was more than I'd expected. Both parents will communicate regarding Emma's schedule and well-being via a co-parenting app that will document all communications. No phone calls, no text messages, everything goes through the app. Neither parent will make disparaging remarks about the other to Emma or in her presence. Neither parent will introduce Emma to romantic partners until the final divorce decree is issued. Claire's head snapped up at that. Derek Mitchell's jaw tightened. Mr. Chen, Emma has been living primarily with her mother for her entire life. This transition will be difficult for her. I'm ordering both parents to attend co-parenting counseling, And I'm strongly recommending that Emma have access to a therapist of her choosing. You will split the cost of both. She signed several documents with decisive strokes. This temporary order is effective immediately. Mr. Chen, your first custodial week begins this Sunday at 6 p.m. Ms. Chen, you will have Emma ready for transfer at that time. Am I understood? Yes, Your Honor, we both said in unison. Good. Final divorce proceedings are scheduled for, she consulted a calendar, April 15th. Between now and then, I expect both of you to behave like adults and put your daughter's needs first. If I see either of you back in my courtroom before then, for anything other than an actual emergency, I will not be pleased. We're adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that felt like punctuation on the end of one life and the beginning of another. Claire and Holloway immediately huddled together, his voice low and urgent. Derek Mitchell sat behind them, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. I couldn't blame him. He'd just been effectively banned from seeing Claire whenever Emma was around, which meant their relationship would be severely limited for the next several months. Good. That went better than expected, Rebecca said quietly, gathering her papers. Week-to-week custody for a first temporary order is significant. Judge Brennan clearly saw through Claire's gatekeeping behavior. What happens now? Now you go prepare Emma's room, buy her favorite foods, make your apartment feel like home. Sunday at 6 p.m., you'll pick her up, and you'll have a whole week to show her that you're back, that you're present, that you're the father she needs. Rebecca smiled slightly. You won this round, Marcus. Don't waste it. We left the courtroom together, and in the hallway I risked one more glance back. Claire was crying, Holloway's hand on her shoulder, in what was probably meant to be comfort, but looked like restraint. Derek Mitchell met my eyes, and in his expression, I saw something unexpected. Understanding, maybe even respect. He nodded slightly. I didn't nod back, but I didn't look away either. Then I walked out of the courthouse into the November sunshine, pulled out my phone and sent a message to Emma through the co-parenting app that Rebecca was already setting up. Hi, sweetheart. I miss you so much. I'll see you on Sunday. We're going to have a great week together. I love you. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. I love you too, Dad. I can't wait. I stood on the courthouse steps, reading those words over and over, and felt something crack open in my chest. Not breaking, but opening, like the first thaw after a long winter. Sunday. I had 2 days to prepare for the most important week of my life. 2 days to transform an empty apartment into a home. 2 days to prepare to be the father Emma deserved. I was ready. Friday afternoon, I stood in the middle of what would become Emma's room, holding paint swatches in one hand and my phone in the other, staring at a blank wall that suddenly felt like the most important canvas I'd ever faced. The room was small, maybe 12 by 14, but it had good light from 2 windows that faced east. And I could already picture Emma here. Could imagine her waking up to sunlight and feeling safe, if I didn't screw this up. My phone buzzed, a message through the co-parenting app from Claire. Emma needs to pack. What should she bring? I stared at the question, trying to read between the lines. Was this Claire being cooperative, or was it a test? Was she genuinely asking, or was she setting me up to fail by making me responsible for ensuring Emma had everything she needed? I typed back, whatever makes her comfortable. Clothes for a week, school supplies, any personal items she wants. This is her home too. She should bring whatever she needs to feel at home. The response came quickly. She's asking about furniture, her bed, her desk. That gave me pause. I'd assumed Emma would sleep in a new bed, use new furniture, that this would be a fresh start. But of course, she'd want her own things, the familiar pieces that made a space feel like hers. If she wants to bring her furniture, I'll arrange movers for Saturday, or we can go shopping together this weekend and she can pick out new things. Her choice. A longer pause this time. I could picture Claire showing Emma the messages, the 2 of them discussing options, maybe even Derek Mitchell offering his opinion. The thought made my jaw tighten, but I forced myself to breathe through it. She wants to go shopping with you. She says she's been wanting to redecorate anyway. Something warm bloomed in my chest. Emma wanted to shop with me, wanted to pick things out together. It was such a normal father-daughter activity, The kind of thing I'd missed too many times while chasing deals across time zones. Perfect. I'll pick her up tomorrow at 10 a.m. if that works. Make it 11. She has a soccer game in the morning. A soccer game? Emma played soccer? Since when? I scrolled back through my memories trying to find when she'd started and came up empty. There'd been mentions, probably texts from Claire that I'd skimmed between meetings, updates I'd half heard during rushed phone calls. Another thing I'd missed. Another failure cataloged. I didn't know she played soccer now. Can I come watch? The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. It's her first season. She's not very good yet. She might not want you there. Translation. Claire didn't want me there. This was her territory, her thing with Emma, another piece of their life that I'd been absent from. But the court order said joint custody. Said I had every right to be involved in Emma's activities. I'd like to be there. What time and where? Another long pause. Riverside Park, Field 3. Game starts at 9 a.m. But Marcus, don't make a scene. Don't turn this into a thing. I almost laughed at that. I was going to watch my daughter play soccer, not stage a dramatic confrontation. But to Claire, my mere presence was apparently a thing. I'll be there. I'll sit away from you if that makes it easier. I just want to watch Emma play. No response. I took that as acceptance and set an alarm for 7 a.m. Then I turned back to the paint swatches, but the colors suddenly seemed less important than the question of who my daughter had become in the spaces between my business trips. Soccer player, first season, not very good yet, so she'd started recently, maybe in September. While I was in Singapore, and I hadn't known, hadn't asked the right questions, hadn't been present enough to notice when my daughter picked up a new sport. I grabbed my laptop and opened a search engine. Riverside Academy soccer schedule. Found the team page, the roster, and there she was, Emma Chen, number 17, freshman team. They'd played 6 games so far this season. Record, 2-4. Not great, but not terrible for a first-year player. There were photos. I clicked through them, hungry for glimpses of this version of Emma I'd somehow missed. There, Emma in a maroon and white uniform, chasing a ball down the field, her face set in concentration. Another Emma on the bench, laughing at something a teammate said. Another Emma talking to the coach, nodding seriously. She looked happy, engaged, part of something. And I'd missed all of it. I downloaded every photo, saved them to a folder, and made a mental note to ask her about the season tomorrow. Not in an accusatory way, not in a why didn't you tell me way, but in a genuine I want to know about your life way. Better late than never. Even if never had been perilously close. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of November day that promised winter was coming, but hadn't quite arrived yet. I was at Riverside Park by 8:30 a.m., early enough to find parking and get situated before the game started. The park was already buzzing with activity, multiple fields, multiple games, parents with travel mugs of coffee and folding chairs, younger siblings running around playing their own informal games. I found Field 3 and positioned myself at the far end, away from the main cluster of Riverside parents. I didn't have a folding chair, so I stood, hands shoved in my jacket pockets, watching the teams warm up. Emma wasn't hard to spot, Mar 17, running drills with her teammates, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She moved with an awkwardness that suggested she was still learning, still getting comfortable with the rhythm of the game. But she was trying, pushing herself, focused in a way that made my chest tight. Marcus? I turned to find Claire standing 5 feet away, wrapped in a puffy coat I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago, holding a coffee cup with both hands. She looked surprised to see me, even though I'd told her I'd be here. Claire, you came. I said I would. She studied me for a long moment, and I couldn't read her expression. Resentment? Regret? Something else entirely. She doesn't know you're here, Claire said finally. I didn't tell her. Why not? Because I didn't think you'd actually show up. The words were matter of fact, not cruel, just stating what she apparently believed to be true. You've missed every game so far this season. I didn't know there were games to miss. You didn't ask. And there it was, The fundamental accusation that underlay everything. I hadn't asked, hadn't engaged, hadn't been curious enough about their daily lives to know what I was missing. She was right. God help me. She was right. I'm here now, I said quietly, and I'll be here for every game from now on. Every practice, too, if she wants me there. Claire's expression shifted into something that might have been sadness. That's what you don't understand, Marcus. It's not about showing up now. It's about the years of not showing up. Emma needed you at her middle school graduation and you were in Tokyo. She needed you at parent-teacher conferences, and I went alone. She needed you at her 8th grade science fair, and you were in Dubai. You can't just suddenly decide to be present and expect everyone to forget the past. I'm not expecting anyone to forget anything. I'm just trying to do better. I forced myself to meet her eyes. I know I failed. I know I prioritized work over family, and I know that hurt both of you, but I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere. Until the next big deal, the next emergency that requires you to fly across the world. Claire shook her head. I've heard this before, Marcus. After Emma was born, you promised you'd cut back on travel. After she started school, you promised you'd be around more, but it never changed. Work always came first. Not anymore. We'll see. She started to walk away, then stopped. She's playing defense today. Number 17. She's not great, but she's getting better. The coach says she has good instincts. She just needs more experience. Thank you for telling me. Claire nodded once and walked back to the main group of parents where Derek Mitchell stood waiting. He saw me, gave a small nod that I didn't return, and put his hand on Claire's lower back. Proprietary. Comfortable. I turned away and focused on the field where the teams were lining up for kickoff. The game was rough. The other team was clearly more experienced, more coordinated, and they dominated possession for most of the first half. Emma spent a lot of time running back and forth, trying to stay with her mark, occasionally getting involved in the play, but mostly just working hard to stay positioned correctly. But I watched every second, watched how she communicated with her teammates, how she encouraged them when they made mistakes, how she got right back up when she fell. She wasn't naturally athletic like some of the other girls, but she had heart. She kept trying. At halftime, the score was 2-0, not in Riverside's favor. The girls gathered around their coach, and I could see Emma listening intently, nodding, taking in feedback. Then she glanced toward the parent section, and her eyes found me. She froze. Her mouth opened slightly in surprise, and for a long moment, we just looked at each other across the field. I raised my hand in a small wave. She waved back, tentative, uncertain. Then she turned back to her teammates, but I could see something had shifted in her posture. She stood a little straighter. The second half went better. Emma was more aggressive, more confident in her positioning. When the other team pushed forward, she held her ground. When they passed the ball near her, she was there, disrupting plays, making it harder for them to build momentum. Riverside still lost, 3-1, but they scored their goal in the final 10 minutes, and Emma was part of the defensive play that started the counterattack. She didn't score, didn't get an assist, but she did her job. When the final whistle blew, she jogged off the field with her teammates, high-fiving and laughing despite the loss. I watched her accept a water bottle from the coach, watched her smile at something a teammate said, watched her be a normal 14-year-old doing normal 14-year-old things. Then she broke away from the group and jogged toward me. Dad? She stopped a few feet away, slightly out of breath, her face flushed from exertion. You came. Of course I came. You are amazing out there. We lost. Doesn't matter, you played great. That defensive stop in the second half that led to your team's goal? That was smart positioning. Her smile widened. You actually watched? Every single second. I wanted to hug her to close the distance between us, but I held back, letting her control the space. I didn't know you played soccer. I'm sorry I missed your first games. It's okay, but her voice said it wasn't, not really. Mom said you're picking me up at 11 to go shopping? If you still want to. Yeah, I do. She glanced back toward Claire, who was watching us from the parent section. I need to go, but I'll see you in an hour? I'll be there. She jogged back to her team, and I walked to my car feeling lighter than I had in days. She'd waved at me. She'd come over to talk. She still wanted to go shopping. Small victories, but they felt enormous. At exactly 11 a.m., I pulled up in front of the house. Emma was waiting on the porch wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair still damp from a post-game shower. Claire stood in the doorway behind her, arms crossed, watching. Emma bounded down the steps before I could even get out of the car, pulling open the passenger door and sliding in. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, sweetheart." I looked past her to Claire, who nodded slightly. Permission granted. "Ready to shop?" "So ready. Can we go to IKEA? And Target? And maybe that furniture place on Riverside Avenue? We can go anywhere you want." As I backed out of the driveway, I caught one more glimpse of Claire in the rearview mirror. She stood in the doorway watching us leave, and her expression was complicated. Worry and resentment, and maybe, just maybe, something that looked like relief. IKEA on a Saturday was chaos. Families with screaming toddlers, couples arguing over cabinet colors, college students loading impossibly large boxes onto flatbed carts. But Emma navigated it like a pro, pulling me through the showroom with a list she'd apparently been keeping on her phone. "I want my room to feel grown up," she explained as we walked through the bedroom displays. "Not little kid stuff, but not trying too hard to be adult either. Something in between." "What colors are you thinking?" "Gray and maybe teal, like a soft teal, not bright. And I want lots of lighting, string lights maybe, and a good desk lamp because I hate overhead lights when I'm doing homework." We spent 2 hours picking out furniture. A simple platform bed with built-in storage, a desk with drawers, a comfortable chair, shelves for books, a full-length mirror. Emma considered each item carefully, looking at price tags even though I told her not to worry about cost. "Dad, this bed is like $800. That's crazy." "It's not crazy if it makes you comfortable. You're going to sleep in it every other week for the foreseeable future. It should be something you like." She studied me with those serious eyes that were so much like her mother's. "Are you sure about this? About me staying with you half the time?" We were standing in the middle of the bedroom section, surrounded by strangers living their own lives, and my daughter was asking if I wanted her. "Emma," I put my hand on her shoulder, gentle, giving her space to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. I have never been more sure of anything. I know the last week has been confusing and scary. I know I handled things badly when I left on Monday. But please believe me when I say that having you in my life, having you stay with me, being your dad, it's the most important thing in the world to me." Her eyes filled with tears. "I thought you didn't want us anymore. When you just walked away that night, I thought..." "No." The word came out fierce. "No, sweetheart. I walked away from an impossible situation. I walked away from your mom's family ambushing me. I walked away from feeling attacked in my own home. But I didn't walk away from you. I could never walk away from you. But you were gone for 3 days. I know, and that was wrong. I should have called you right away, should have explained, should have made sure you knew that none of this was your fault." I waited until she met my eyes. "Emma, your mom and I are getting divorced. That's happening. But you're not getting divorced from me. I'm still your dad. I'll always be your dad. And I'm going to be here, present, involved in your life in ways I haven't been before. I promise." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Can we get the bed?" I almost laughed at the abrupt topic change. The way teenagers protected themselves by shifting to practical matters when emotions got too heavy. "Yeah, we can get the bed. And the desk? And the desk. And can we get one of those beanbag chairs? For reading? We can get whatever you want." We filled 2 flatbed carts with boxes, added bedding from the home section. Emma chose gray sheets with teal pillows, and stood in the checkout line for 45 minutes while Emma told me about school, about her friends, about the English teacher she loved and the math teacher she didn't. "Mr. Mitchell, Derek, he's actually really good at explaining things," she said, and I forced myself not to react to the name. "He helped me with my essay on To Kill a Mockingbird. Mom says I shouldn't talk about him around you, though." "You can talk about whoever you want, Emma. If he's helping you with school, that's a good thing." You're not mad that mom is dating him? I paid for the furniture, $1,500 that felt like the best money I'd ever spent, and pushed one of the carts toward the parking lot while Emma pushed the other. I'm mad at how everything happened, I said carefully. I'm mad that I had to find out the way I did, but your mom has a right to date whoever she wants. We're getting divorced. That means we're both going to move on eventually. Are you going to date someone? Someday, maybe. But right now, I'm focused on you, on being your dad, on making sure you're okay through all of this. We loaded the boxes into my car, it took some creative Tetris, and drove to Target for paint, smaller decorations, and the string lights Emma wanted. Then to a local art supply store where Emma picked out canvases and paints. I didn't know you painted, I said. I just started. There's an art elective at school. I'm not very good yet, but I like it. It's peaceful, I guess. Another thing I'd missed. Another piece of her life I was just discovering. We grabbed lunch at a sandwich shop Emma loved, sitting in a corner booth and eating while she showed me photos on her phone. Her friends, her art projects, screenshots of funny conversations. She talked and I listened. Really listened, asking questions and remembering answers. This is nice, she said finally, balling up her sandwich wrapper. Just hanging out. We haven't done this in forever. I know, I'm sorry. You apologize a lot now. I have a lot to apologize for. She considered this, then nodded. Yeah, okay, but maybe you could just do better instead of apologizing all the time? Wisdom from a 14-year-old. Deal. We spent the rest of the afternoon at the apartment, assembling furniture. Emma insisted on helping, and we worked together following the incomprehensible IKEA instructions, me reading the steps while Emma sorted hardware. This is exactly like a puzzle, she said, fitting pieces together. See, tab A goes into slot B. When did you get so handy? Mom and I have assembled a lot of furniture over the years. You were always traveling. The comment wasn't accusatory, just factual, but it landed anyway. Another reminder of all the ordinary moments I'd missed. By 6 p.m., Emma's room was taking shape. The bed was assembled and made, the desk positioned under the window, shelves mounted on the wall. We'd hung the string lights in a pattern Emma directed, creating a warm glow that made the space feel cozy despite being new. It's perfect, Emma said, standing in the doorway and surveying the room. Really perfect, Dad. You did most of the work. We did it together. She turned to me, smiled. Can I stay tonight? Like just tonight? I know it's not officially your week yet, but my heart leaped. If your mom says it's okay. Emma was already pulling out her phone, texting Claire. We waited in silence for the response. Finally, just tonight. She needs to be home by noon tomorrow. We're having brunch with my family. She said yes. Emma looked up at me, grinning. I need to go home and get my stuff, though, my toothbrush and pajamas and stuff for school Monday. I'll drive you. 20 minutes later, we were back at the house. Emma ran inside while I waited in the car, not wanting to intrude. Claire appeared in the doorway briefly, saw me, and disappeared back inside. Emma emerged 10 minutes later with a duffel bag and her backpack, and we drove back to the apartment. My apartment? Our apartment, as the sun set and the November evening turned cold. Can we order pizza? Emma asked as we walked inside. Absolutely, what kind? Half pepperoni, half mushroom? Perfect. While we waited for the pizza, Emma set up her laptop at her new desk and started on homework. I sat in the living room with my own laptop, catching up on work emails, but mostly just listening to the sound of Emma existing in the next room, the click of her keyboard, the occasional sigh, the quiet humming of a song I didn't recognize. Normal sounds, home sounds. The sounds of a life I was determined not to lose again. Sunday at noon, I drove Emma back to Claire's house for the mandatory family brunch, both of us quiet during the drive. Emma had slept well in her new room. I'd checked on her at midnight and found her curled up under the gray comforter, string lights casting soft shadows on the walls. And we'd spent the morning making pancakes together. Emma teaching me her preferred recipe while I pretended not to notice that it was completely different from any pancakes I'd ever made before. Another small thing I'd missed, the way my daughter liked her pancakes. Thanks for last night, Emma said as I pulled up to the curb. It was really fun. We'll have a whole week together starting tonight. You ready? She hesitated, her hand on the door handle. Dad, at the brunch today, Grandma Patricia is going to ask me questions about staying with you, about how I feel about the divorce. Okay. I kept my voice neutral, even as tension coiled in my chest. What are you going to tell her? The truth, that I like your apartment, that you came to my soccer game, that I want to spend time with you. She looked at me directly. Is that okay? Mom gets upset when I say nice things about you. The admission landed like a punch. Claire was already working to shape Emma's perception, to make my presence threatening rather than welcome. Emma, you should always tell the truth about how you feel, always. Don't worry about upsetting your mom or me, just be honest. Can you do that? Yeah, she opened the door, then paused again. 6 o'clock tonight? I'll be here at 5:55. She smiled and jogged to the house, where Claire was already opening the front door. They exchanged words I couldn't hear, and then Emma disappeared inside. Claire looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before closing the door. I drove back to the apartment and spent the afternoon making it more livable. Groceries first. I'd asked Emma what she liked to eat and had been surprised by how much had changed. She was into smoothies now, something about a health kick at school. She'd given up red meat but still ate chicken. She liked those protein bars that tasted like cardboard but apparently had good macros, whatever that meant. I filled the cart with her preferences, adding my own staples: coffee, bread, eggs, the ingredients for stir-fry that Emma had mentioned she loved. At the checkout, I loaded everything into bags and realized this was the first time in years I'd grocery shopped with someone else's needs at the forefront of my mind. Back at the apartment, I organized the kitchen, creating spaces for Emma's things alongside mine. Her smoothie ingredients in the front of the fridge, easy to access. Her favorite cereal at eye level in the cabinet. Her protein bars in a basket on the counter. Small gestures, but maybe small gestures were what I'd been missing all along. At 4:30 p.m., Rebecca called. How did the shopping trip go? Good, really good. She stayed over last night. That's great, Marcus. But remember, you're still in the early stages here. She's excited about the new room, about the novelty of having two homes. The real test comes when the newness wears off and you're dealing with ordinary life. Homework battles, mood swings, 14-year-old drama. I know. Do you? Because in my experience, parents who've been absent tend to want to be the fun parent when they come back. They want to buy things and have adventures and skip the hard parts. But the hard parts are where real parenting happens. Her words stung because they were probably accurate. I did want to be the fun parent, wanted Emma to associate my apartment with good times and laughter, not with discipline and conflict. What should I do? Establish routines. Bedtime, homework time, chores. Make her room feel like home, but also make sure she understands that this is real life, not a vacation. You're not Disneyland dad, you're just dad. The boring, everyday, pack your lunch and do your homework dad. That's what she needs. After we hung up, I created a schedule on a whiteboard I'd bought specifically for this purpose. Wake up at 6:30 a.m. Breakfast by 7:15. Leave for school at 7:45. Homework time from 4-6 p.m. Dinner at 6:30. Free time until 9:30. Lights out at 10. It looked rigid on the whiteboard, but Emma needed structure. We both did. At 5:55 p.m. exactly, I pulled up to Claire's house again. This time, Derek Mitchell's car was in the driveway, a sensible Honda Accord that somehow made me irrationally angry. He'd been at the family brunch, had probably sat at the table with Claire's parents and siblings, had probably listened while they discussed what a terrible husband I'd been. I stayed in my car, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel, watching the minutes tick by. At 6:02, the front door opened, and Emma emerged carrying two bags, her school backpack and a larger duffel. She was followed by Claire, who was followed by Derek. I got out of the car as Emma approached. Sorry I'm late, Emma said, slightly breathless. Grandma wanted to talk. It's fine, you ready? Yeah, she turned back to Claire. Bye, Mom. Claire pulled Emma into a hug that lasted several beats too long. Remember to text me before bed, and call if you need anything. And, Mom, I'll be fine. It's just a week. I know, Claire's voice caught. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. Emma extracted herself from the hug and moved toward my car. Derek stepping forward, and I tensed, but he just nodded at me. Mr. Chen. Mitchell. I couldn't bring myself to call him Derek, couldn't grant him that familiarity. He seemed to understand. Emma, have a good week. Thanks. Emma was already opening the passenger door, eager to escape the awkwardness. I looked at Claire one more time. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying recently. Part of me, some vestigial piece of our 16 years together, wanted to ask if she was okay. But that wasn't my role anymore. I didn't get to comfort her. I'd lost that right, or maybe she'd relinquished it. Or maybe it had just evaporated somewhere between Singapore and that Monday night. I'll have her back Sunday at 6, I said. Claire nodded and turned away, Derek's hand finding the small of her back as they walked back into the house. My house. The house I'd bought, the mortgage I'd paid, now occupied by my wife and her boyfriend, while I lived in an apartment with rented furniture. The unfairness of it hit me suddenly, sharply. But then Emma buckled her seatbelt and said, "Can we stop for Thai food on the way home?" And the unfairness mattered less than the fact that my daughter had just called my apartment home. Monday morning started rough. The alarm went off at 6:30 and I woke up easily. Years of early meetings and international time zones had trained my body to function on command. But when I knocked on Emma's door at 6:45, there was no response. I knocked again. "Emma, time to get up, sweetheart." A groan from inside. 5 more minutes. We leave in an hour. 5 more minutes. At 7 o'clock, I knocked again. "Emma, seriously, you need to get moving." "I'm up. God, Dad, stop knocking." She emerged at 7:20, hair unbrushed, still in pajamas, moving like every step required enormous effort. She shuffled to the bathroom while I made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, simple but nutritious. She appeared in the kitchen at 7:35, now dressed but looking half asleep. "I'm not hungry." "You need to eat something." "I'll get something at school." "Emma, Dad, I'm fine. Can we just go?" This, I realized, was the real parenting Rebecca had warned me about. Not the fun shopping trips or the cozy evenings making pizza. This was the teenager who didn't want to eat breakfast, who was grumpy in the morning, who pushed back on reasonable requests. I could push harder, insist she eat. Or I could pick my battles. Grab a protein bar for later at least. She rolled her eyes but took 2 from the basket and shoved them in her backpack. "Happy?" "Ecstatic. Let's go." The drive to Riverside Academy took 12 minutes, and Emma spent 11 of them scrolling through her phone in silence. I tried to make conversation, asked about her homework, her plans for the day, but got monosyllabic responses. When I pulled up to the drop-off line, Emma grabbed her backpack and opened the door. "Bye, Dad." "Have a good day. I'll pick you up at 3:30. "Soccer practice until 5. Can you pick me up then?" "Of course, I'll be here." She nodded and slid out of the car, joining the stream of students heading into the building. I watched until she disappeared inside, then drove to my office for the first time in a week. The office felt strange, like returning to a place you used to live but didn't anymore. Jennifer had kept everything running smoothly. Meetings rescheduled, clients updated, projects delegated. But when I walked through the glass doors at 8:15 a.m., conversations stopped. People looked up, then quickly away, pretending they hadn't been discussing my situation. Of course they'd been discussing it. I'd been gone for a week with vague explanations about a family situation. In a company this size, rumors spread like wildfire. "Marcus!" Jennifer appeared at my elbow, coffee in hand. "You're back. How are you?" "I'm okay. Thanks for holding down the fort." "Of course, Piram." She walked with me to my office, lowering her voice. "People know, by the way, about the divorce. I didn't say anything, but someone saw the court filing in the public records. It's made the rounds." "Great. If you want to address it, you could send a company-wide email. Just something brief acknowledging the situation and making it clear you're still committed to your work." I set down my briefcase and logged into my computer. Hundreds of emails, dozens of voicemails, all the accumulated debris of a week away. Draft something and send it to me. I'll review it. Already done, it's in your inbox. This was why Jennifer was worth her weight in gold. I opened the email and read, "Dear colleagues, as some of you may be aware, I'm currently going through a divorce. This is obviously a difficult personal time, but I want to assure everyone that it will not affect my commitment to our work or our clients. I'm implementing some changes to my travel schedule to ensure better work-life balance going forward, but I remain fully dedicated to the projects and partnerships we've built together. I appreciate your understanding and discretion during this time. Best regards, Marcus Chen." "It's perfect. Send it." The response was immediate. Within minutes, replies flooded in, supportive messages from colleagues, offers of help, the occasional uncomfortable joke that was probably meant to lighten the mood but fell flat. I responded to a few, archived the rest, and dove into work. For 6 hours, I lost myself in spreadsheets and conference calls and project proposals. It was familiar, comfortable, easier than thinking about the fact that my life had fundamentally changed. But it too epic to force myself to stop, to pack up my laptop and drive to a coffee shop near Riverside Academy. I'd promised Emma I'd pick her up at 5. That meant being early, being reliable, being present. I set up at a corner table and worked remotely, responding to emails and reviewing contracts, but always with one eye on the clock. At 4:45, I packed up and drove to the school. The soccer field was visible from the parking lot, and I could see Emma's team running drills. I got out of the car and walked closer, stopping at the fence that surrounded the field. Emma spotted me almost immediately. She waved and I waved back, then settled in to watch the rest of practice. The coach, a woman in her 30s with a whistle around her neck, was running the team through passing exercises. Emma wasn't the most skilled player, but she was attentive, focused, trying hard. When she misplayed a pass, she immediately repositioned and called for the ball again. Resilient. That's what she was. Resilient and determined, and stronger than I'd given her credit for. At 5:15, the coach blew the whistle and gathered the team for a final huddle. I stayed by the fence, patient, letting Emma finish her team obligations before I intruded. She jogged over at 5:20, face flushed, hair escaping from her ponytail. "You actually came." "I said I would." "Yeah, but..." She shrugged, not finishing the sentence. But I understood. I'd said I would do things before and then hadn't. I'd broken promises due to work emergencies and last-minute travel. She'd learned not to trust that I'd show up. "I'll be here for every practice and every game," I said, "unless there's an actual emergency. And even then, I'll let you know in advance, okay?" She studied my face, looking for the lie, the caveat, the eventual disappointment. Okay. We drove home, and I caught myself thinking of the apartment as home now, not just my place. And Emma headed straight for the shower while I started dinner. Chicken stir-fry with vegetables. The recipe I'd perfected years ago during a brief phase when Claire and I had tried to cook more. Emma emerged 20 minutes later in sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair damp, looking more relaxed than she had all day. "Smells good. Should be ready in 5 minutes. How was school?" "Fine. Just fine." "Yeah, normal, boring." She pulled out her phone, started scrolling. This was the challenge Rebecca had warned me about. The everyday boredom, the teenager who didn't want to engage, the normal friction of actual parenting rather than the highlight reel. "Homework?" I asked. "Some. I'll do it after dinner." We ate at the small dining table I'd bought specifically for this purpose. Meals together, conversations happening naturally, but Emma was quiet, focused on her food, occasionally checking her phone despite my pointed looks. "Phone away during meals," I finally said. She looked up, surprised. "Mom lets me have it during dinner." "Well, I don't. This is our time. No phones." For a moment, I thought she'd argue. Her jaw tightened, her eyes flashed with annoyance. But then she set the phone face down on the table and went back to eating. Small victory, but it felt significant. After dinner, Emma retreated to her room to do homework while I cleaned up the kitchen. Through the wall, I could hear music playing, something with a heavy beat that I didn't recognize. Normal sounds, home sounds. At 7:30, I knocked on her door. "How's homework going?" "Fine, almost done." "Need help with anything?" I'm good. I hovered in the doorway wanting to connect but not knowing how to bridge the gap between her focused concentration and my desire to be involved. I was thinking we could watch a movie after you finish, if you want. She looked up from her laptop, surprised again. Really? Yeah, your choice. Even if it's something you won't like? Even then. A small smile. Okay, give me 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes stretched to 45, but I didn't complain. When she finally emerged, we settled on the couch, maintaining a careful distance, not quite touching, but sharing the space. And she chose a romantic comedy I would never have watched on my own. But I watched it, paid attention to the plot, laughed at the jokes, made comments that made Emma roll her eyes and smile. And somewhere around the halfway point, she shifted closer, her shoulder brushing mine, the distance between us shrinking. By the end of the movie, she was leaning against me, comfortable and relaxed, and when the credits rolled, she didn't immediately move away. That was nice, she said quietly. Yeah, it was. Can we do this every night? Maybe not every night. You have homework, and sometimes I'll have work calls. But most nights? Yeah, we can do this most nights. She nodded and stood, stretching. I'm going to bed, school tomorrow. It's only 9:30. I like to read before sleep. Is that okay? Of course, whatever you need. I stood too, awkward now, unsure of the protocol. Did I hug her goodnight? Wait for her to make the first move? Emma solved the problem by stepping forward and hugging me quickly, fiercely. Good night, Dad. Good night, sweetheart. Sleep well. She disappeared into her room, and I heard the soft click of her door closing, the creak of her new bed as she settled in. I cleaned up the living room, set up the coffee maker for tomorrow morning, and stood at her door for a long moment, listening to the quiet sounds of my daughter existing on the other side. This was it. This was the boring, ordinary, everyday parenting that Rebecca had talked about. The homework and the soccer practice pickups and the movie nights on the couch. The small moments that accumulated into a life. I'd missed so many of these moments. Years of them, chasing deals and building a career and convincing myself that providing was the same as being present. But I was here now, and I would be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, no matter how many business deals I had to turn down. No matter how many promotions I had to sacrifice. No matter what it cost. Because this, Emma reading in her room, the knowledge that she was safe and comfortable just on the other side of that door, this was worth everything. The week unfolded in a rhythm. Early mornings and grumpy teenagers, drives to school and pickups from soccer practice, homework battles and movie nights. Some moments were perfect. Others were frustrating. Most were just normal. On Wednesday, Emma got a B- on a math test and was upset. I helped her review the concepts she'd missed, and we worked through practice problems until she understood. It wasn't dramatic or memorable, but her relieved smile when it clicked made my chest tight. On Thursday, she asked if her friend Madison could come over after school. I said yes and spent the afternoon listening to teenage girls talk about things I didn't understand in the living room while I worked remotely at the dining table. They giggled constantly, spoke in references I didn't get, but Emma looked happy, relaxed. On Friday, we went grocery shopping together after soccer practice, and Emma picked out ingredients for a recipe she wanted to try, some kind of pasta dish she'd seen on TikTok. We cooked together, made a massive mess, and the pasta turned out mediocre at best. But we laughed through the disaster, ordered pizza as backup, and Emma declared it the best cooking fail ever. Small moments, ordinary moments. The building blocks of a relationship I'd almost lost. Saturday morning, Emma had another soccer game. I was there early, same spot by the fence. And this time, Claire didn't come talk to me. She stayed with the other parents with Derek at her side, and we occupied opposite ends of the field like opposing armies maintaining a ceasefire. Emma played better this week. Riverside won 2-1, and while Emma didn't score, she was solid on defense, communicating well with her teammates, showing improvement from the week before. After the game, she jogged over to me, grinning. We won. You were great out there. I'm getting better, right? Like, you can see improvement? Definitely. Your positioning in the second half was really smart. She beamed, and I wanted to capture this moment. this proud and happy version of my daughter, and keep it forever. Dad? She glanced back toward Claire, then at me. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you think, she paused, choosing words carefully. Do you think things would be different if you'd been around more? Like, do you think Mom would have still, you know, the affair? She was asking if I thought my absence had caused Claire's affair. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. Maybe if I'd been more present, more engaged, things would have turned out differently. But Emma, your mom made a choice. We both made choices that led here. I can't blame everything on my travel schedule, and she can't blame everything on my absence. We both could have done better. But you're doing better now, right? I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. She nodded, satisfied with that answer. Okay, good. Sunday evening arrived too quickly. At 5:30, Emma started packing her bag for the week at Claire's, moving slowly, reluctantly. I don't want to go, she said as she folded clothes into her duffel. Can I just stay here? You know the custody agreement, week on, week off. But it's not fair. I want to stay with you. The words should have made me happy. She wanted to stay, wanted to be with me, but they also troubled me. Do you not want to be at your mom's? I do. I mean, I love Mom, but... She sat on her bed, the half-packed duffel beside her. But things are different there now. Derek is around a lot, and Grandma Patricia keeps asking me questions about you, trying to get me to say bad things. And Mom seems sad all the time, and I feel like I have to make her feel better. That heaviness in her voice, that sense of responsibility, no 14-year-old should carry that. Emma, listen to me. You are not responsible for your mom's happiness, or mine. You're allowed to love both of us, to enjoy time with both of us without feeling guilty, okay? But what if she asks who I like staying with better? Tell her the truth, that you love both of us and you're glad you get time with both of us. And if she pushes for a different answer, you tell her that's not a fair question. I moved to sit beside her on the bed. Your mom and I are adults. We're dealing with adult problems. You're the kid. Your job is to be a kid, do your homework, play soccer, hang out with friends, have fun, not to manage our emotions. She leaned against me, and I put my arm around her shoulders. I really don't want to go. I know, and I'll miss you like crazy, but I'll see you next Sunday, and we'll have another whole week together. And in between, you can text or call whenever you want. At 6:00 p.m., we drove to Claire's house in silence, Emma's reluctance palpable. When we pulled up, Derek's car was there again, which made Emma's shoulders tense. You okay? I asked. Yeah, just, can you walk me to the door? Of course. We got out together and I carried her duffel while Emma walked beside me, dragging her feet slightly. Claire opened the door before we reached the porch, her face carefully neutral. Hi, Emma. How was your week? Good. Emma took the duffel from me, hugged me quickly. Bye, Dad. Love you. Love you too, sweetheart. I waited until she was inside before turning back to my car, but Claire's voice stopped me. Marcus, I turned. She stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself despite the mild evening. Thank you, she said quietly, for taking this seriously, for really showing up. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and walked back to my car, feeling her eyes on me the whole way. As I drove back to my empty apartment, empty but somehow still feeling like home, I thought about the week that had just passed. The ordinary moments and the small victories and the gradual building of something real with my daughter. 1 week down, many more to come. And for the first time since Monday, November 23rd, when I'd walked into that ambush and felt my life fracture, I felt something that might have been hope. 3 months passed in a blur of custody exchanges and soccer games and homework help and slow, careful rebuilding. Winter settled over the city, bringing snow that made the morning drives to school treacherous and beautiful in equal measure. Emma turned 15 in January. We celebrated twice, once at my apartment with homemade cake that we burned slightly, once at Claire's with the family I was no longer part of. The rhythm became easier. Emma stopped resisting the Sunday evening transitions, stopped asking to stay longer at whichever house she was leaving. She decorated her room at my apartment with photos and art projects until it looked properly lived in, properly hers. She started leaving things at both places, clothes, books, the small, accumulated debris of a teenager's life, until she truly had two homes instead of one home and one visiting place. Claire and I learned to communicate through the co-parenting app, our messages becoming more efficient, less emotional. Emma has a dentist appointment Tuesday at 4. Can you take her? Yes. Science fair project due Friday. She's been procrastinating. I'll make sure she works on it tonight. Practical, functional. The way divorced parents operated when they put their child first. Derek Mitchell remained a presence in Emma's life at Claire's house, and I learned to accept it, if not embrace it. Emma spoke about him occasionally. He'd helped her with a history project. He'd driven her to soccer practice when Claire was sick. He'd made jokes at dinner that were actually funny. I listened without comment, without judgment, because Emma needed to know she could talk about her life at both houses without censoring herself. The divorce proceedings ground forward with bureaucratic slowness. Depositions and financial disclosures and negotiations over asset division. Rebecca handled most of it, shielding me from the worst of the acrimony, but I still had to sit through meetings where Claire's attorney painted me as the absent workaholic and my attorney countered with evidence of Claire's affair and poor judgment. It was exhausting, degrading, necessary. But through it all, Emma remained the constant. The reason I got up early and cut my travel and turned down the promotion I'd been chasing for years. The reason I learned to cook more than 3 meals. The reason I showed up, consistently, reliably, becoming the father I should have been all along. April arrived with the divorce hearing just 2 weeks away, and I'd begun to think I understood the shape of my new life. Shared custody with Emma, civil co-parenting with Claire, the slow acceptance that my marriage was over, but my family, in a different form, would continue. Then Rebecca called on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports. Marcus, we need to meet. Today, can you come to my office in an hour? Something in her tone made my stomach drop. What's wrong? Not over the phone, just get here. I made excuses to Jennifer, left the office early, and drove to Rebecca's brownstone with my heart hammering. She was waiting when I arrived, her expression grim. Sit down, she said, and I did. She pulled out a folder, thick with documents. I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago, just routine discovery work, verifying timelines, documenting Claire's affair, building our case for the final hearing. Okay, he found something big. She opened the folder and pulled out a series of photographs. These are from Claire's hotel visits with Derek Mitchell, the ones she charged to your joint credit card. I looked at the photos, grainy surveillance footage from hotel security cameras showing Claire and Derek entering the Meridian on various dates. Nothing I didn't already know. I don't understand. We already documented the affair. Look at the dates, Marcus. She pointed to the timestamp on the first photo. This is from March 15th of last year, not 6 months ago like Amanda said at the intervention. 14 months ago. The number landed like a physical blow. 14 months, not 6 months. That's not... I tried to process it. Amanda said 6 months. At the intervention, she specifically said 6 months. She lied, or Claire lied to her family. Rebecca pulled out more documents. Credit card statements highlighted in yellow. The hotel charges go back even further. The first one is from January of last year. 16 months, Marcus. Claire's affair started 16 months ago, and she's been using your money to fund it the entire time. 16 months. I scrolled back through my memories. January of last year, I'd been in Singapore for 3 weeks, closing the Donovan account. The biggest deal of my career. I'd come home exhausted and triumphant, and Claire had seemed distant, but I'd attributed it to the long separation. She'd already been cheating on me. There's more, Rebecca said quietly. The investigator found something else, something I think you need to see before the final hearing. She pulled out another document, and my entire world shifted on its axis. The final hearing was scheduled for April 15th, but it never happened. 3 days before we were due in court, I sat in my apartment with Rebecca's folder of evidence spread across my dining table. 16 months of lies, $80,000 hidden, text messages proving premeditation, Everything I needed to destroy Claire's credibility and secure primary custody of Emma. I picked up my phone and called Claire directly, breaking our app-only communication rule. Marcus, what's wrong? Is Emma okay? Emma's fine. I need to talk to you. Tomorrow, just us. No lawyers. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Claire arrived looking nervous, defensive, probably expecting an ambush. I slid the folder across the table. What's this? The truth about how long your affair has been going on, about the money you've been hiding, about how you planned this entire thing while I was traveling. Her face went pale as she opened the folder. Saw the evidence. I could use this in court, I said quietly. I'd probably win primary custody, maybe even sole custody, but Emma would be destroyed in the process. She'd have to hear how her mother manipulated everything, how you used her as a weapon. Claire's hands trembled. What do you want? I want us to settle this privately. Joint custody, true joint custody, 50-50, no child support either way. We split Emma's expenses and we split decisions. And you stop hiding things. From me, from Emma, from everyone. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you give me this when you could win? I thought about Emma, about those movie nights and soccer games and homework sessions, about the life I'd built with my daughter that had nothing to do with winning and everything to do with being present. Because Emma needs both of us. And because I'd rather be her father than be right. Claire started crying. I'm sorry. God, Marcus, I'm so sorry. I know. Sign the settlement agreement. Let's end this. 6 months later, I stood at Emma's championship soccer game, Claire on one side of me, Derek on the other. We weren't friends. We probably never would be, but we could stand together and cheer for our daughter, and that was enough. Emma scored the winning goal, and when she ran to us afterward, she hugged all three of us without hesitation, without choosing sides. That night, she called from Claire's house. Dad, I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For not making me choose, for just being there. I looked around my apartment, Emma's artwork on the walls, her soccer medals on the shelf, the photos from our weekends together covering every surface. A home built from silence, from walking away, from choosing presence over pride. Always, sweetheart, always.